But with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I think we're going to try to do a double tonight, because I ain't got shit to do, and it's fine. It'll be fun. Good to get a little extra Higurashi in your life tonight. How's it going, Jetstorm? Welcome. You were just in time. We are just about ready to dive right back in where things left off last time. So let's not waste any time at all. Let's just get it going. Glad to hear you are doing all right. That's what I like to hear.
Ohayo, Keiichi. Hara. Yūbe wa nanji ni neta no?
I did not sleep well last night at all. My mother could tell from a single glance. I had the worst dreams, nightmares, very ominous dreams, or one after another, again and again. I woke up after each one, but could never even remember a fraction of what they had been about. But it was like those dreams were predicting something unpleasant. And I woke up in a terrible mood. Hey now, every day has been calm and fun before today, right? Those days should continue on, unchanging. And yet, anxiety was the only emotion growing within me. Why was that? Nightmares reflect your own anxiety. They show an uneasy mind that which you wouldn't admit to normally. Yesterday, I remembered the ominous conversations about Satoshi I had with Shion, Neon, and Rena. Right. My mind felt like it was in a black fog because we had talked about that. If I'd lived every day without causing a fuss, my reward would be even more peaceful days. I understood that. So why did I cause such discord? But now that I thought about it calmly, a simple verbal slip on my part couldn't possibly change the world. No, not at all. That's literally never happened, Keiichi. Yeah, like when we last left our hero, he'd fucked everything up again. And Jetstorm, when we're getting closer to the end of the stream, feel free to fire up your stream and I'll just send the host over your way when we're wrapping up here, if you want to go that route. As long as I'm sorry for doing it and never talk about it again, there's nothing that anyone can blame me for, right? Exactly! Look at him, he's already got the rules of this world completely grasped. Besides, how would my fate possibly change just because I talked about that? Nothing was going to change. Yeah, nothing would change. Nothing would change. Nothing would change.
気持ち悪い笑い。寝ぼけてるなら顔を洗ってらっしゃい。
I finally cheered up enough to smile, and Mom slapped me right back down. Now I was irritated again. Thanks, Mom! There wasn't much time left before I had to meet up with Rena. I frantically started to get ready to go to school.
行ってらっしゃい。
Wow, and to think, it's Keiichi's mom's fault if all of this goes to shit, because she ruined his good mood.
車に気をつけるわよ。
Moms, I swear to God.
気をつけるほど車もいないよ。南沢には。
I dashed out the front door. The morning air was far more refreshing than the water on my face. That's right, Keiichi Maibara. If you're sorry enough about it and reflect upon your mistakes, that's enough. Now let's pull yourself together and get to school. And return to fun, enjoyable days. Where everyone laughs, plays, and just has a good time. See? Even the game knows. Even the game knows we're here to have a good time. I'll be nice to Satoko as an apology, too. Yeah, wasn't I supposed to be her Nini until Satoshi got back? See, it's all good. See, Rena's here. She's here to smile with us, to live out these nice, warm, happy days in Hinamizawa. Rena, too, looked nothing like she had yesterday when she said all that weird stuff. If I could only forget, then I could still act like nothing had happened. So I called out to her with all the energy I could muster.
おはようレナ。相変わらず早いな。おはよう。おはようございます。
There was little time before the same old morning homeroom began, but Satoko and Rika-chan were unusually absent. Maybe they went to play somewhere. However, looking over and seeing none of their things, so it looked like they really hadn't come to school. Oh, we have an almost copter there. Alongside your protagonist's mom JRPG idea. Rena seemed to be enjoying herself, thinking about what their excuse for being late would be. Leon said something nonsensical as well, imagining how funny the reason they were late must have been. I had only come to school to see their energetic faces, since I figured it would get rid of these feelings I have. But the load on my chest remained where it was. It wasn't very pleasant at all.
おはようございます、皆さん。委員長、号令。
Now what we need is an arc from Chie-sensei's point of view. Like, where's the voice for Curry in all of this? Like, where's the Curry arc? That's what I'm looking for.
Kids!
Our teacher finally arrived. Then finally I heard the pitter-patter of footsteps running down the hall. Rika-chan was the first to run through the opened door, and then Satoko. Didn't come.
遅刻ですよ、フルデさん。北条さんはどうしましたか?
It was unusual for Rika-chan to be late, but equally unusual was Satoko, a ball of energy, to be absent at all. Everyone's eyes were wide at the series of strange events.
さとこはちょっと遅れるかもしれないのです。
Release the Curry arc, Warner Brothers!
熱でも出ちゃいましたか?
The teacher walked over to Rika-chan and they started talking in hushed tones.
リカちゃんが遅刻でサトコが欠席なんて珍しいこともあるもんだよ。
そうだね。だけどさとこちゃんどうしたんだろう。風邪かな。
Why now, when I most wanted to see Satoko's energetic face, the unease that had been building since last night tightened within my chest.
ケイちゃんは心配しすぎ。年頃の女の子にはね、どうしても体の都合で具合が悪くなっちゃう時があるの。
みーちゃん、それ男の子の前で言うことじゃないよ。
Mion laughed indecently. Normally I'd laugh along with her, but right now I just didn't feel like it. Homeroom ended and we went to talk to Rika-chan in the short time we had just before first period started.
遅刻して怒られてかわいそうだな。今日は俺がなでなでしてあげよう。
I was very aware of my gloom this morning, so I strove to keep my tone cheerful. I petted Rika-chan's head the same way she always did, but she didn't seem to cheer up at all. Oh.
さとこはどうしたんだ? 風邪か?
For instance, she got a fever from playing around too much yesterday. If that had been the response, I would have accepted it in a flash. Ellipses usually is not a good excuse for things. But the atmosphere around Rika-chan felt somehow heavy. It was a little weird and actually made my unease worse. You don't make fun of a lady's weight, Keiichi. Come now. She's doing her best.
ほら、男の子には話せない事情ってのもあるんだから。ケイちゃんはお席へ戻って。
Mion, acting just like a club president, pulled me back to my chair. Rika-chan's gaze immediately fell back to her desk and she hung her head gloomily. Rika-chan had said something odd, that Satoko might be a little bit late. They were living together, weren't they? Then she would have known for sure. She wouldn't have said might. I didn't understand why she was absent, and that made me all the more anxious. Damn it, what's going on today? It's like we started off on the wrong foot, and it wasn't going to get any better. It's probably fine, everybody, don't worry.
どうしたのかな、ケイチ君。
I'm remaining positive, because remaining positive has given us 4 straight chapters of good times. So just stay positive. That's how we beat this thing. What child doesn't want to play hooky from school at this age, am I right? I did it all the time.
今日はなんだか朝から元気ないよ。
Rena noticed how I looked and whispered to me while the teacher wasn't looking.
そんなに俺元気ないか?
うん。見てるレナまで元気がなくなるくらいに。
I thought of jokingly saying, then don't look at me, but I didn't even feel like doing that.
レナに話せること？どんな悩みかわからないけど、聞いて力になれることなら聞くよ。
I won't tease you. Rena said this looking at me straight in
昨
the
日ま
eye.
で何も変なことなんか起きなくて 楽しかったんだ。
Rena's eyes widened for a moment, not understanding what I meant, but she remained silent and
穏や
listened.
かで楽しくて、毎日が賑やかで、そんな毎日が繰り返されることに何の不安もなかった。
うん、そうだね。毎日楽しいよ。きっと今日も楽しくなる。
絶対にそうなるって自信が持てるか？
Rena, feeling perplexed, couldn't think of something to say. I didn't blame her. What it was trying to say seemed a little confusing, even to
思え
me.
ばここ最近不安だったんだ。毎日が楽しいからこそ、ある日ふっと真っ暗になってしまうんじゃないかって。
うん、その気持ちちょっぴりレナもわかるよ。
Rena nodded gently.
私たちはいいことばかりは続かないってずっと教えられてきたから、楽しいことの裏側を時々恐れるよね。それってちょっぴり悲しいことだけど、でもそのおかげで私たちは楽しい毎日がずっと続くように努力することを覚えたんだよ。
そうだな。
だから圭一くんが楽しい日々がいつまでも続かないかもしれないって思うのは
God.
決して悪いこと
Rena's
じゃ
such
な
a
い
good
と思うよ。
girl.
例えば明日突然火山が大爆発して私たち
Well,
が
that's a
全
little
員死んじゃう
extreme.
とする。
おいおい、物騒な話だな。
例えばその大災害を圭一くんだけが生き残ったとしたらどう感じる？
どうって。
I imagined myself being that sole survivor in the ruins of Hinamizawa, rubble and the bodies of friends lying in heaps at my feet. It was such an abhorrent sight. Was it sadder than all my friends had died? Or was it sadder that I couldn't have died with them? I didn't know which, but I'd probably cry a
胸
lot.
が張り裂けるだろうな。
Yeah, it's a little extreme. Rena deals in extremes.
まず泣くと思う。
そしてこう思うんじゃないかな。こうなることが運命だったなら昨日までの日をもっともっと楽しく悔いなく過ごせばよかったって。
I didn't want to consider such a horrible event to be my destiny, but
思うだろうな。
楽しい毎日がいつか終わるものならそれがいつかなんて誰にもわからない。だったらたとえ明日そうなっても悔いがないように精一杯楽しく生きるのが正解じゃないのかな。
Rena is wise beyond her years.
そうだな。
それに気づくのはとても難しいこと。多くの人たちは日々の幸せに飽食してるよ。今日と同じ明日が訪れると信じきってるから、今日できることを明日に送る。今日してやれる優しさを明日に送ってしまう。
Also, this is quite the conversation we are having while class is going on. Like, we're just kind of we're having this very deep, life-affirming conversation while class is happening. Rena was usually cheerful and silly, but right now she wasn't like that at all. She was taking my trouble seriously. It was a little
でも
reassuring.
圭一くんはそれに気づけた。それはとても素敵なことだと思う。
We're gonna read about volcanoes.
だからその不安な気持ち大切にしてもいいと思うの。
この不安を大切に。
そう。明日には大災害でみんな死んじゃうかもしれない。だから今日みんなにいっぱい優しくしよう。
Boy, that's relevant. That's fucking relevant! Hey Taylor, how's it going? Welcome to Higurashi night. We're having a very good conversation with Rena. It's been it's been very fruitful. And there was a volcano analogy about destroying the entire village. That was good.
本当に週末が訪れた
The
時
girl thinks real deep
後悔
sometimes.
しないために
And Raven, welcome.
レナ
Welcome.
は実践してるのか？明日みんなが死んじゃっても後悔しないようにさ。
It was such a hyperbolic conversation, but Rena just gave me a nonchalant nod of her head.
レナは楽しい毎日がたった一日を境に終わってしまうことを知ってるから
Yeah, I think of everybody, Rena always has her head on her shoulders. Even like when things are at their worst, she's very good at keeping a pretty level head about things.
明日も楽しい保証なんかないって知ってるから生きてるよ精一杯
It seemed like Rena perfectly understood all the anxiety I couldn't put into words. And on top of that, like a reliable teacher, she showed me what to do. Oh, hey, Keiichi Maibara, there's no need to cry now.
サトコの夢を見た気がするんだ。どんな夢だったかは思い出せないけど。
Hey, Poncho, welcome. Yeah, I feel the same way.
さとこちゃんの元気な顔を見れたら安心するつもりだったかな
She was right on the money. If everyone had been here with smiles on their faces this morning, then the murk in my heart would have definitely been blown to smithereens.
じゃあさとこちゃんが来たら優しくしてあげることだねいつもの悪ふざけでも一向に構わない楽しく過ごすことができるなら
そうだな。
So that even if these fun days came to an end, I'd have no regrets. I couldn't tell if what Rena told me had been comforting or just made me more anxious, but it was enough to make me think that if I saw Satoko again, I'd be honest with her. Ding dong, bing bong. Lunchtime arrived and everyone pushing their desks together like always. Ended up on a deserted island while you're getting my signals crossed. Yeah, no, I think you're right. You're on point. You're on point. Despite that, we had bento boxes for 5 lined up on our desks. Rika-chan had made a bento for Satoko too.
さとこお昼までには来るはずだったの
Rika-chan was clearly acting strangely. We were talking to her, but it felt like she was too far away to hear us. I had never seen Rika-chan so downcast, so the rest of us started feeling down too. Hey, Rena! Hey, Rena, you want to pull us out of here? Rena, help! I understood what she had said before pretty well. When we were together, we were supposed to have lots of fun, so we wouldn't have any regrets if the world ended tomorrow. And yet, while I just resolved myself to do it, now we can't all be together. What the hell? Because it was just so sudden, wasn't it? I mean, yesterday was fun, so who could believe it would all end today? No volcanoes had erupted, but no earthquakes or fires had happened either. The cicadas were making the same noises they did yesterday, and the sun remained bright in the sky. It was the same normal day as always. So then why? As I pondered, Rena's chopsticks reached in front of my face and stole the fried chicken out of my bento.
みんなが取らないからレナがもらうね
Rena wanted that chicken.
おいしい
Rena tossed the entire piece into her mouth and began munching on it, her expression one of bliss.
とおじさんとしたことがレナに先生を許すとはねよっしゃ
Stop starving an old man!
おじさんはこのプチハンバーグをもらうよ
僕のおかずがなくなってしまうのです
Rena will take what she wants. Rika-chan, also behind the curb, smiled again and went for someone else's bento. As I sat there dazed at how quickly everyone had changed, Rena sent a wink over to me. Good girl. Like, look at her go. Like, Rena is holding this shit together. Save the rice as your palate cleanser. Exactly. Come on, Keiichi-kun. Live life to the fullest. That way, if a volcano erupts tomorrow, it'll be okay.
冗談じゃねえ。最後の弁当が梅干しとご飯だけになってたまるか。それ、俺はミートボールをいただくぞ。
I stuffed the meat into my mouth and constructed a clumsy smile. I played along as if trying to fool myself, but as I did, it rapidly became less and less of an act. Satoko still wasn't here, but at some point we had regained our lively lunchtime. We had fun, we smiled, we fooled around. Thanks everyone, this was definitely the best thing to do. This way, when Satoko suddenly dropped by, we could welcome her with our best smiles. The more I smiled, the more I felt the anxiety from this morning clearing away.
笑う角に服着たるってことわざあったよ
あるね。それが事実ならおじさんは四六時中笑い転げてるよ。
レナは本当だと思うな。毎日笑ってれば毎日が楽しいよ。レナがいいことを言いますです。
じゃあ試してみるか。
Everyone took a deep breath and brought their faces together, locking shoulders. And then... Is this Higurashi's version of the Final Fantasy X scene? Is that what we just witnessed here? I think that's what we just witnessed. Everyone laughed uproariously from their stomachs, trying to laugh out all of the bad stuff accumulating in them. By the time our bento boxes were empty, everyone was right as rain. We did it! Everything's fine now! See? I told you. You just gotta keep a positive attitude, and good things will continue happening. Having heard our friendly banter, Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun walked up and timidly spoke to us.
前原さん、楽しくお話し中、申し訳ないんですけど。
What is it, very young John Thayer?
ちょっとお力をお借りしたくて。
They grinned dryly and scratched their
なんだよ
heads.
一体。テストの対策法は以前教えただろ。
Wow! This boy's just chock full of information!
ちなみに千恵先生が授業中と含み笑いを教科書で隠した時が次のテスト範囲だ。
I've never heard that as a solution for anything like that. But then again, I don't think I've ever seen a censored porno mag, which I'm sure is probably more of a thing in Japan.
そうなんですか?
That's not what we're here for, said Tomita-kun, elbowing Okamura-kun.
実はですね、ボールが2階の雨どいに引っかかっちゃったんですよ。前原さんなら身長高いからなんとかなるんじゃないかと思って。
ほう。先輩に物を頼むからには何か見返りがあるんだろうな。
Yo, June, welcome. We've not done much yet. We've just discerned that Satoko is not at school, but that's probably fine. We're getting better, I think. Like we laughed at lunch, so that made everything better. But welcome.
俺は高いぜ。簡単に買収できると思うなよ。
Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun conversed for a short time and gave their reply.
では前原さんには授業中に居眠りができる権利を与えましょう。それでどうです？
なんだそりゃ。授業中に寝るのは俺の勝手だろ。なんでお前らに権利をもらわなくちゃならんのだ。
そんなことないですよ。今度は前原さんが居眠りしたら全部先生に言いつけることにしますから。
Yeah, like they're getting a lot of screen time, and I did not expect it. Also, they're little shitlords. While they're at it, you little shitlords. God, it's such a John Thayer thing to do.
なるほど、うまいうまい。
こいつら。とんでもない交渉の仕方を覚えやがって。
す は冗談っす。
ほらほらケイちゃん、おとなしく後輩たちの脅迫に屈したら
Whopper meat. Yo, give me that Whopper meat. Anamion was getting on my nerves. Suddenly it came to me, and I took Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun's hands.
わかった。俺の降参だ。ボールを取ってやるから、居眠りの権利を俺にくれ。
That's a very John move.
見ろミオン。俺はちゃんと権利をもらったぞ。でもお前はもらってないよな。ドミタ君、岡村君、ミオンが居眠りしたらすぐにチクれ。
Way to just turn that around. Way to just turn that the fuck around.
いいな。
Rana and Rika-chan began to cackle at Keiichi-kun's victory. I wasn't sure how the ball managed to get stuck up there, but it was planted firmly in the school building's second floor
その棒
gutter.
を貸せ。俺なら多分届く。よいしょっと。
I took a bamboo pole and poked the ball with it. Damn, it's hard. Come on.
取れた。取れましたよ、前原さん。どうもありがとうございました。
The ball rolled down the gutter and fell down behind the school building. My underclassmen ran over in that direction, leaving me by myself. Mission complete, I guess. Find cute games about bunny girls and love. I know like a few of those. I know a game where a bunny girl falls in love with a wolf girl, and this is very adorable. Sheesh, there's still a lot of time left before lunch break was over. Yes, I should get back to the classroom. I'll absorb myself in a silly conversation with everyone and wait for afternoon classes. If you need a nap, I will support you. Irisu syndrome. But just when I thought that I turned towards the entrance, someone suddenly called out to me. Oh boy. Domo to you too, sir. Hi, middle-aged man. Domo. I almost feel like I should be charging for those too. Look who's here, everybody! It was a middle-aged man we don't know. Or maybe I'd passed by him a few times and seen his face, but I didn't know him. With his half-smile deepened, something within me shuddered with fear. There was no basis for that, no reason, but I shuddered. I was somewhat confused about those emotions, not quite understanding them myself. There was one thing I could say, though. Nobody but teachers and students should be at school. This person shouldn't have been here. Crops phases. I felt less of a tremble and more of a sense of dread, like a brilliantly colored, poisonous caterpillar was crawling across my forehead. A feeling of disgust that neither itchy nor gross could describe as the frizzly, dreadful hair rubbed against my brow. I didn't even want to see his face. I wanted to jump backwards and run away, an unpleasant feeling for which I didn't even know the cause. The other side of myself had nothing but questions. Hey, what are you doing? What are you disgusted by? This is the first time you've met him. It's rude to hate someone for no reason. No answers were coming. See, people, it's rude to hate someone for no reason. We don't even know who this guy is. It's fine. It's probably fine. I held my silence, waiting for a damp sweat running down my forehead. We saw that Oishi thought maybe he was being intimidating and gave me a relaxed smile. How do you know his name? That's bad narration there. He didn't know his name yet. Or maybe there's a reason for that. Oishi is the fucking plague of Egypt. But this is Oishi. He's from the Okinomiya Police Department.
あれ、手帳どこかな。あれ参ったな。ありゃ
He fished through various pockets and finally found his police ID and showed it to me, grinning dryly. He may have been trying to use those clumsy-seeming actions to ease my anxiety, but I could definitely say it didn't work. Why was I this nervous? There was a reason, of course. If I wanted today to be the same as before, then today didn't need someone who hadn't been here back then. The fact that a man who wasn't here yesterday showed up today meant that today would be a different day than those before it. That would mark the end of the fun and happy days. Oishi is an interesting character in this series, I think. He brings an energy that I think the series needs. I think he is a needed component for things to work. I gulped and erased that ominous conclusion from my mind. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. It's just an old guy who looks kind of perverted and came from the police department. Don't go deciding the fun times are over. He brings dread, yes. His colors are black and red, so there's probably some symbolism in that. He just came here because of his job. Yeah, I mean, look, and if we put him in old style, look, he's harmless. That's all we gotta do is just put him in old style, and he's completely harmless. If he's working, then he'd normally go to the teacher's lounge, right? The fact that he spoke to me, yes, it must have been to ask where he was. Yeah, it's like dread, but not necessarily malice. See, he's fine. He's just a happy old dude. A happy, portly old dude.
職員室をお探しですか？
I saw that. It was really good.
ならあそこの昇降口から入って。
I didn't want to look at the man for another second, so I started pushing things along. Oishi, however, didn't seem to have any interest in the teacher's lounge.
ああ、いえいえ。職員室にはそんなに用事はないんです。それよりお友達を呼んでもらいたいんですが、お願いできますかね。
What?
お友達？誰です？
女の子です。北条聡子さんを呼んできてもらえませんか。
Yeah, I'll get right on that. Cop. My consciousness grew faint, like I was about to pass out. Yes, my anxiety was realized. The dreadful, disgusting caterpillar was looking at me, about to crawl into my ear. Its frizzly, dreadful hair was touching my ear cavity. That's how bad it felt.
警察が聡子に何の用ですか？
いえ、大した用事じゃないんです。2、3聞きたいことがありまして、ご協力をいただければ嬉しいんですがね。
Why? Why, of all people, was it Satoko? Why would a police officer come here in the middle of the day for something that wasn't important? This man was strange. I could smell it, and it smelled bad. Just a whiff of it made me want to grimace. I knew that this man couldn't possibly be here to deliver her lost wallet or anything. I couldn't imagine what he needed from Satoko, but it had to be something unpleasant. My throat stung with burning pain, burned like a parched, creviced wasteland. The wasteland broke apart deep in my throat and brought out the words from deep in my mind.
あんたに用はあっても聡子にはないと思います。
You tell him, Keiichi.
帰って
Got
くれ
him.
ませんか？
Got him. Look at him. He's standing up to the cops. It's my boy. That is my boy. Oishi probably hadn't expected that reply. He stood there surprised for a few moments. I did as well. I hadn't thought words like that could ever come out of my mouth. Things might still work out. This guy may have shown up out of the blue, but if I drove him off, maybe I could make it so that it never happened. If I could do that, then I could get back to the place where we had been yesterday before all this shit began.
これは手厳しいな。あなた、さとこさんのマネージャーさんですかな。
What if I am, cop?
アポイントメントがないと面会は叶いませんか。
Yeah, you're gonna have to call 555. Go fuck yourself. Get a hold of me there, and I can pencil you right in.
話がしたいだけなら電話ですればいいじゃないですか。日中学校にまで押しかけてくるなんて明らかに異常です。
Breaking through the dam would have been a perfect analogy to use. Why didn't I like this man? This man shouldn't have been here. I needed to make it so that this man wasn't here. Childish, selfish emotions bubbled up from the depths of my mind, and they each came out of my mouth just as they had been formed. Not liking this guy was my own problem. But to say things so bluntly to him, even I thought I was crazy.
ありゃ。いちいち正論な方ですね。こういう言い方をする人は苦手なんだよな。
Oishi grinned and scratched his sweaty throat. Even as he feigned stupidity, I could tell he was irritated. Hey, Keiichi Maibara, why am I looking for a fight with this old policeman here? It's not like he brought the gift of misfortune with him. I don't know about that, Keiichi. You might be paying more attention than you think you are. All wrapped up in paper, right? Right? It wasn't like he had brought a package of misfortune with him and was asking me to sign here, please. Boy, they're just right on the fucking nose. Rationally speaking, I understood all that. So then why was I so... Finally, I outlasted Oishi in our game of silence, and he gave a big sigh. Then he addressed a few of my female underclassmen running around nearby.
もしもし、君たち、ちょっといいですかな。北条聡子さんを呼んできてほしいんですがね。
The gift of misfortune is his belly, wrapped in skin. My underclassmen tried to smile and reply, but they noticed the oddly stiff air atmosphere around me and seemed hesitant to give a quick answer.
いませんか、北条聡子さんは。
北条さんは今日はお休みですけど。
休み。
His face remained smiling, but his tone was clearly one of ill humor. Such conspicuous spite caused my underclassmen, who had answered honestly, to cringe in fear.
そうですか。いやはや。これはついてないです。
He was smiling broadly, but the way he laughed didn't make me feel better at all. When he noticed that his laughter wasn't getting anyone else's to laugh with him, he immediately stopped.
で、君たち、ここにいるお兄さんはなんて
Don't sell me out! He grabbed the girls by the shoulders so they wouldn't run away and crouched down to address them at eye level. The girls flinched away from a sharp, piercing light in his eyes, and in exchange for their release, they didn't resist and told him my name.
前原圭一さんですか。
He said my full name. That was all he said, and yet I couldn't help but shudder. It was like he grabbed me by the collar just with those words.
あなたひょっとして例の前原屋敷の御曹司。お父さん、高名な芸術家さんなんですってね。年に2回ほど東京の大展覧会に出展されてるそうじゃないですか。どんな立派な絵を描かれるかは存じませんがね。お母さんも知的そうな方じゃないですか。高学歴って聞きましたよ。どこぞの女子大を出られてるそうじゃないですか。
Yo, why do you know all this? What reason do you have to know all this?
あの年の女性で女子大でなんてすごいですよ。ひょっとしてお母さん、両家のお嬢さんなんじゃないですか。なんて噂が立ってるせいか、冷たい人だなんて噂が立てられてる。
Wow! Look at this guy go!
町内会の会合、最初の1回以外は出てないでしょう。
What is he doing right
こ
now?
ういうのっていけないんですよね。こういう土地ではご近所付き合いをないがしろになんかできませんよ。
What in the world? No, she's been pretty, background character the whole time. A sense of eeriness slithered up my spine. This was my first experience of true terror. I couldn't believe it felt this terrible for someone you just met to know everything about you already. Oishi clamped onto my shoulders and brought his eyes close to peer into mine.
こういう土地ではね、敵は作らない方が絶対にいいですよ。
Man, if you are looking to solve a big old mystery going on here, you are going about getting an ally in the wrong ways imaginable.
さもないと。
Ow! Oishi dug into my shoulders with inhuman strength.
思わぬところで不利益を受けるかもしれない。
What is going on?
因果応報という言葉もありますよ。
What a fucking scumbag!
風が吹けば桶屋が儲かるの正反対です。妙なところで買った恨みが信じられないところで返ってくることがあるかもしれません。
This is just a straight up threat!
そうなったら嫌でしょ。誰だって恨みなんか買いたくないんです。敵を作らないに越したことなんかない。どうしました？肩がだいぶ凝ってますね。ちょっと揉んであげましょうか。ほら、気持ちいい。
Wow! This is fucking terrifying! See, before, it was like, okay, I didn't think, okay, Oishi's a cop, so he's automatically bad, but I liked him as a character because I thought he brought something interesting to the story. I actively hate him this arc! Jesus Christ! This man wasn't just strong. It was like he knew exactly where to press to make me feel pain. Only 4 or 5 fingers were on my shoulders, and yet the pain made me want to bend over backwards. A few of the girls from my class were pretty shaken up, but didn't seem to want to help me. They weren't sure if they should call the teacher. As for me, I couldn't take the time to wait until the teacher got here. It hurts.
もうそれくらいになさってください。
Hey, hey!
痛がってますよ。
Yo, baseball guy!
Huh?
He'll save us. Baseball guy's got our back. Behind Oishi-san, someone, to my disbelief, it was Coach.
おや。これは入江先生じゃありませんか。ご無沙汰しておりますね。
Dr. Irie. Dumbfounded by Coach's sudden appearance, Oishi-san laughed scornfully. The vice on my shoulders, however, remained as strong as ever.
挨拶はいいです。それよりも前原くんを離してあげてください。
Oishi smiled daringly and glared straight at Coach. He didn't release me in the meantime, of course.
先生のところにも後でお伺いしようと思っていたんですよ。いつもお忙しいとかでろくろくお話ができませんからね。
ええ、お望みとあればいくらでもお話を伺いますよ。でもその前に令状をお持ちになってください。 職務質問と任意同行は拒否できますからね。
Coach didn't display a shred of the weird behavior he'd shown at the baseball game and barbecue. He stared steadily at Oishi and fought so that he would release me. His chances were terribly bad, of course. Compared to the relaxed Oishi, Coach seemed like he was being defeated mentally. It made sense. Coach had a somewhat narrow stature, but Oishi's body was packed with muscles. That's not muscles. This boy is packed with Burger King. It wasn't even a contest, but Coach was fighting for me without taking a step back. Beads of sweat formed on his face, and though he paled, he was fighting for my sake. Suddenly, Oishi laughed and let go of my shoulders. My body exhausted, I fell right onto my backside.
大丈夫ですか?
くそ。いてててて。
I rubbed my shoulders where Oishi had latched onto them. The pain from falling over went away quickly, but this pain was lingering.
大丈夫ですか、前原君。ひどいことを。
くそ。いててて。
ちょっと肩を揉んだだけじゃないですか。
Oh god, you are just the worst, Oishi. Wow, why are you the worst this
前原さん
chapter?
も少し大げさすぎですよ。男の子はもう少し我慢強くなくっちゃ。
Let me tell you how much of a man Keiichi Maebara is, Oishi. We could trot this boy around in a full-on maid costume, would not flinch. He'd even get a boner from it because he enjoys it. Could you do that? I got so many muscles I store them in my stomach for later use. I wanted to retort, but I couldn't think of anything
肩は上
witty.
がりますか、痛みますか。痛みが強いようならちゃんと診察をした方がいい。とにかく保健室へ。
Coach lent me his shoulder and walked beside me.
大げさですね。私に限って傷が残るような真似をするわけがないじゃないですか。ねえ。私これでも現職の警察官なんですよ。
さあ、どんなご用があったか存じませんが、もうご用がないならお帰りを。今日のことは今度所長さんに直接抗議しますから。そ
れは困りますね。
Oishi-san waved his hand sarcastically, pivoted around, and headed to the car parked by the school gates. And without turning back around, he got in and started the engine. Damn it. Who the hell was he? Damn it.
大石クランドという刑事です。乱暴者でね。
He's a hooligan! He's a hooligan! Gotta step away for now? Alright. Take it easy, Sayara. Have yourself a good rest of your evening. Exactly. This arc brought to you by ACAB. All cops are bastards. But yep. Have a good one, Sayara. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye.
村中に嫌われている男です。
Everyone in the village hates him. Yeah, not hard to believe.
前原さんも用心した方がいい。
Corrado Oishi. Just like I thought, my gut instinct wasn't wrong. He would be the one to bring unhappiness, misfortune, something that would ruin our peace. Yeah, like I appreciate. Yeah, he definitely like needs to kind of be an adult that's got their head on their shoulders in a situation like this. Shit, I won't accept it. All these fun days can't possibly end just because some guy like him showed up. I won't accept it. Coach seemed to be familiar with the school, so he brought me to the nurse's office without much trouble. The girls from the class along as well looked worried. Our teacher and the principal, having noticed the disturbance, came to see what was the matter.
前原くん、
That's probably good. Yeah, that's probably a good point too.
どうしたんですか？怪我でも？ 前原さん、さっき校庭で変なおじさんに。
Coach gently interrupted the girls trying to explain.
いえ、ちょっと転んでひねったみたいです。大丈夫だとは思いますけど、念のためと思いましてね。保健室をちょっとお借りいたします。
Yeah, all we gotta do is just tell her, yo, there's a cop outside and he said Curry's awful. Send her out. Send her out.
入江先生、
I want to see them
よろ
stop
しくお
her.
願いしますぞ。
The principal gave him a deep bow. It looked like Coach was acquainted with the adults at school. He slid open the doors to the nurse's office, but there wasn't a nurse in there or anything. I'd figured. I'd never seen anyone but Chie-sensei and the principal working here. Coach didn't seem to mind the fact that there was no nurse and quickly made his way to the nurse's office. He instructed me to sit down and started washing his hands in the sink. Oh, I get it. He's the coach for the boys' baseball team. He must be pretty used to treating wounds with first aid.
ちょっと幹部を見せてもらえますか。
He told me your curry was dog shit. I stole the joke out of your brain.
まだ痛みます。
いえ、もう全然痛みません。本当に大丈夫です。
I rolled in my shirt and showed him my shoulder. No bruise, not even nail marks. And yet it had hurt so much I thought my shoulders would be crushed. Even the pain had disappeared without a trace. It hurt so much, but not so much that a bruise remained.
それだけあいつが慣れているということですよ。
Used to it, huh?
今度会った時は挑発しないことです。あいつを怒らせて得をすることは何もありませんからね。自宅に制服警官を連れて押しかけてきたら、ご家族だっていい気持ちはしないでしょう。
それは確かに。
しかし何があったんです？前原さんがあいつと喧嘩になるなんて。
あいつ里子に用事があるとか言ってきて。
え？里子ちゃんにですか？
Coach's gaze lowered and his expression clouded a bit. Somehow that gesture seemed to be saying Oishi was bound to come to Satoko and did, and that it was no laughing matter. Coach fell silent in thought. Quietly, he took a compress out of the first aid kit and put it on me.
あの男はまだ里子ちゃんに付きまとうつもりなんでしょうか？
Beg your pardon?
本当に蛇みたいにしつこい男です。
Coach mumbled
付
to
きまとう
himself.
あの大石っていうやつ、たびたび里子のところへ来てるんですか？
Coach didn't answer, but the lack of a denial served well enough. What on earth did the policeman, probably a detective or something, need from Satoko? What mistake had led a detective to cling to a sweetly smiling Satoko?
前原さんは引っ越してきたばかりでしたね。
ええ、そうですけど。
お社様のたたりと里子ちゃんの話は少しは聞いたことがあります
Well,
か？
those are two things I didn't expect to hear back to back from the doctor, but sure. I liked it better when we talked about baseball. Every time this damn curse comes up, some bad shit goes down, and I don't like it. Well, I knew a few things about it,
里子の
certainly.
両親がダム計画の賛成派で、転落事故で死んだのはたたりだって話ですか？
Coach smiled thinly and dryly, so you know, he said, dropping his gaze. If I recalled correctly, there was an accident on a viewing platform at a public park that she'd gone to with her family, and her parents died. And then it was her big brother and little sister, and then she was with Rika-chan, and,
ご両親が亡くなった里子ちゃんとお兄さんのさとしくんはおじ夫婦宅に身を寄せることになりました。
あ、そうなんですか。
Their parents died in the accident, and Satoshi ran away, leaving only Satoko to start living with Rika-chan. I'd known that much, but this was the first time I heard they had been brought to their uncle and
おじと
aunt.
いうのは里子ちゃんのお父さんの弟にあたる方なんですがね。残念なことに 夫婦揃ってちょっと尊敬に値する方々ではありませんでした。
That's probably bad. Coach normally picked his words politely, so when he came out and said they didn't deserve respect, it really made me wonder what kind of people they
さと
were.
こちゃんの両親がダムに賛成していたとばっちりで、おじ夫婦も村内ではとても肩身の狭い思いをしていましたからね。さとこちゃんたちを歓迎するはずもなかったんです。さとこちゃんたち兄弟にとってとても辛い生活だったと聞きを読んでいます。
Bit by bit, Coach told me about the numerous agonies the Hojo siblings had suffered at their uncle's house. As their guardians, their aunt and uncle sucked up everything belonging to their immediate family. Satoko and Satoshi were crammed into a small room, and their lives were laden with things that were miserable both for their bodies and minds. In the first place, since apparently their aunt and uncle weren't on good terms, there was no end to their fighting. And as if in revenge for that, whenever they saw Satoko or Satoshi's face, they would always find fault with them, scold them, yell at them, strike them, and take away their meals as punishment.
今思い出してもゾッとします。今の元気なさとこちゃんしか知らないあなたには土毛色の顔をしてただ日陰でぼーっとしているだけの彼女など想像もつかないでしょう。
I couldn't imagine it and didn't want to. That was how I honestly felt. But at the very least, Satoko wasn't like that anymore. She may have had a miserable life in the past, but it was different now. Something happened to change that life.
去年の綿流しのお祭りの夜にね、おばが死んでしまったんです。異常者にバットか何かで殴り殺されて。
Oh, damn.
綿流しの祭りの夜には村の旧敵がたたりで死ぬと噂されてましたからね。
That's a relatable gamer moment.
この死も単なる殺人事件としてだけでなく、お社様のたたりではないかと村中でささやかれました。
A few days later, the deviant arrested for drug use confessed to further offenses, and the incident was resolved. However, though it was resolved, no one knew whether the part about it being Oyashiro-sama's curse was true or not.
おじだってひなみ沢の人間ですからね。お社様のたたりを大層怖がり、逃げ出して雲隠れしてしまったそうです。聞いた話では沖宮あたりの実婚の中の女性宅に転がり込んでるとか。
それで解放されたんですか？さとこたちは。
おばは死に、おじは逃げ出し、誰も兄弟をいじめる者はいなくなるはずだったんですが、まるでその後を継ぐようにあの男が執拗に現れるようになったんです。
あの男？
The coach lowered his voice just a bit as if being aware of his
大
surroundings.
石です。
大石、さっきの男。
The events that just occurred came back to me. The hard to describe ominous sensation I'd felt from him came back to me.
あいつは少しお社様のたたりをめぐる一連の事件はみんな解決しているのに、あいつだけがそれを認めていないんです。
Accepted. The incidents were all solved, and a detective supposedly with the police department didn't accept
あ
that.
いつが近づく人間には必ず何かよからぬことが起こると言われています。
Yes, Oishi means delicious. His name also just means big rock. And I think it's just Oishi for delicious. But I think they're obviously going for a double entendre here. I mean, it's Japanese wordplay and kanji, so I think it's pretty obvious that's what they're going for.
ひなみ沢ではね、大石のことをお社様の。
Hey! How's it going? The door flew open and the rattle and Neon came rushing in. Rena and Rika-chan came running in a few steps behind her, and then Tomita-kun, Okamura-kun, and a few more of our classmates.
ケイちゃん、大石にやられたの？
It's his rap name, Big Delicious Rock.
怪我を？
落ち着いてミオンさん。怪我はありませんよ。念のため湿布をしているだけです。
圭一君、本当に大丈夫かなみんなに聞いたら首を締め上げられてたとか言ってて。
Damn!
落ち着けよレナ。
Just straight up getting strangled
肩を
now.
すげえ痛く握られただけだ。ほら、あざだってないだろ。
みー。
たく、あんたら何やってんだよ。仲間だろ。なんでぼーっとしてたんだよ。なんでケイちゃんを助けなかったんだよ。
Wow, she mad. She big mad.
ごめんなさい、委員長。
Mion yelled at our classmates, baring her fangs. Tomita-kun and the others hung their heads in silence.
よせよミオン。富田君たちはその場にいなかったんだ。責めるのはよせ。
くしょ
Oh, she pissed.
ー、大石のやつ。
Oh, she is pissed. This girl wants blood. Mion kicked the floor with her heel a few times, her temper running hot. Her teacher, overhearing the commotion, arrived as well.
こらこらこら、保健室で騒がしくしてはいけません。委員長、みんなを連れて保健室から出なさい。
ほらみんな、もう行こう。圭一君は大丈夫だって。ほら、みーちゃんも。
Mion was letting her emotions get the best of her, so Rena stepped in instead and led everyone out of the nurse's office. The detective from Okinomiya Station, Kurado Oishi. It looked like the first impression I'd gotten from him hadn't been mistaken. Satoko's absence had amplified the vague apprehensions I'd felt since yesterday, and Oishi's appearance basically sealed the deal.
さて、じゃあ私はもともと千恵先生に用事があってきたんです。
あ、用事があって学校に来たんですよね。俺なんかのためにどうもすみませんでした。
Yeah, she's got to bring someone over for the special table tonight. I wonder if Oishi is on that short list. Don't be so humble, he said, smiling easily.
おかげで役得と言いますか、前原くんのきめ細やかなお肌も存分に堪
Stop
能で
being
きま
weird,
した
Irie.
よ。
Stop it.
ハフ
Stop it. Oh my god, stop it. With the usual for Coach anyway, parting words, he instead continued.
では失礼します。
The special table list, Shion, Oishi.
大した怪我ではありませんが、幹部を揉んだりするようなことはくれぐれも避けてください。もしも高熱が出たり腫れたりするようなことがあったらすぐに連絡してくださいね。そんなことはないと思いますが。
あ、そうだ監督。さっきみんなが来る直前何か言ってましたよね。大石のことをお社様のなんとかって。
As he was about to leave the nurse's office, Coach placed a hand on the door and stopped.
ああ、お社様の使いですよ。
What?
もちろん悪口ですがね。
お社様の使い？
前原さんはひなみ沢で毎年綿流しの夜に起こるひなみ沢村連
Oh,
続
good.
開始事件。
Oh, good. This is coming up. This is
お社
probably
様の
fine that we're about to
方
hear
々の
this.
ご存知ですか？
連続開始？え？
Now that I thought about it, I did seem to remember overhearing Mion or someone in class talking about it like a ghost story. On the festival day in June, one person would always die and another person would be spirited away, but they seem to call it demoning away here. What a fine story that was! I figured they made it up to scare me, but it was true?
一体どこの誰が言い出したのかもわからない話ですが、いつの頃からか大石のことを お社様の使いと呼ぶようになりました。
なぜですか？
あの男がその年のたたりの犠牲者を決めていると噂されているからです。
What? Whenever June came around, Oishi would start paying frequent visits to
亡くな
Hinamizawa.
ったり消えたりする人たちの多くがあの男の執拗な訪問を受けているからです。
4 years ago, it was known that the victim of the dismemberment, rumored to be the sacrifice, had been seeing Oishi numerous times leading up to the incident. The sacrifices 3 years ago were Satoko's parents. Right before their accidental deaths, Oishi had apparently visited their home. The one who disappeared 2 years ago was Rika-chan's mother. And again, people knew that before she was vanished, Oishi had been talking to her extremely frequently. The one who disappeared last year, Satoko's older brother Satoshi. Satoshi, too, had apparently been approached by Oishi many times before he vanished. And then this time Oishi was trying to contact Satoko.
冗談じゃないです。
噂ですよ、前原さん。そういう噂があるというだけです。
I hadn't said that because of the rumors of Oishi being Oyashiro-sama's servant, or his contacting someone foreshadowing who would be the sacrifice that year. It was because the ominous hatred I felt toward Oishi was becoming more substantiated, more real.
さとこ、今日欠席したじゃないですか。
え、そうなんですか。
That looked like news to Coach. I thought he might have known why Satoko was absent today, but...
では失礼します。
Do I have to pay the demon rent?
前原君も早くみんなのところに行って安心させてあげるといいでしょう。
そうですね。そうします。
Coach left the nurse's office and headed toward the teacher's lounge. Damn. Okay. That adds a little perspective to things. Why people might not be so stoked that Oishi is around. So research notes and Oishi's post memo. Interesting. We got some tips. Let's check out them tips. So we got research notes. The Hojo family. Every year, Oyashiro-sama's curse claims 2 victims. This means that with 4 years in a row, there have been 8 now, but it's worthwhile to note half of them have been members of this family. Note, the curse on the second year, a certain falling incident, involved the death of Hojo, a dam proponent, and the disappearance of his wife. She was pronounced dead the following year after being considered to have vanished under perilous circumstances. The curse on the 4th year involved the death of the Hojo siblings' aunt, who was then their foster mother, and the disappearance of the elder brother. The Hojo family is a poor one, and it's said, and it is hard to say Mr. Hojo's job went very well. Apparently, upon re-employment via family connections, there was a plan for them to return to the home of the mother's side of the family. For Mr. Hojo, the eviction due to the Hinamizawa Dam project and the payment of the large amount of compensation money was essentially a windfall. Mr. Hojo aggressively accepted the Ministry of Construction's negotiations from an early stage and selected others from Hinamizawa who were also dam proponents. It was rumored he had been bought out by the Ministry of Construction for doing so, but the truth is unknown. However, the dam's proponents were in a vastly outnumbered minority. In addition, as the Sonozaki family strengthened its own foundation and promised support against the dam, all of the proponents, save for Mr. Hojo, switched over to the anti-dam side. At this point, Hinamizawa was completely united against the dam, and Mr. Hojo was held up to ridicule as a stooge of the dam project's proponents. He was essentially used as a scapegoat for the anti-dam coalition. In the end, the dam project collapsed, and Oyashiro-sama's curse and the dismemberment incident. However, punishment towards the bitter enemies supporting the dam project continues to this day. There are not many left today who support the dam project, nor who had a negative reputation at the time. If there were any candidates left for the curse, then the husband of the housewife who had been beaten to death last year, Teppei Hojo, and Mr. Hojo's daughter, Satoko Hojo. Strangely, the two are the only candidates left. Will this year's curse come down to the two of them? Is there more than enough value observing them both? Ooh, boy. That's some deep lore. And whose notes are these? We're not exactly sure. They're just research notes. Shortly through the previous arc, we were reading a notebook, somebody's scrapbook, and we got an idea of whose scrapbook that was by the end. So whoever's writing these research notes may kind of pop up a little later. Don't know yet. And Oishi's post memo. To Oishi-san. There was a call for you from Section 4's Chief Shigeharu. Apparently, the slaughtered corpse in the Ojikawa River is related to S Group as we thought. We're still verifying what happened behind the scenes, but apparently the deceased filled up dozens of self-created fictional bank accounts to their limits with money from the S Group reaching around 100 million yen. It appears there were 3 or 4 men with former S Group connections involved in this. They've already disappeared along with millions of yen. The deceased was tortured to the point for information, and she was clearly slaughtered as an example to others. There are apparently some real wizards chasing down the people who disappeared. They're also spreading letters to related Yakuza groups not to harbor them. There's still no evidence that Teppei Hojo is one of those people. From what the Chief Shigeharu has seen, nothing's been announced. For such a dependent, the man wasn't trusted at all. Teppei Hojo has left his apartment in Okinomiya and has returned to his former residence in Hinamizawa. Interesting. So that is one chapter down, but we are going to do another tonight. So we're going to take like a 5-minute break or so, and we'll be right back. Let me get up, stretch out a bit. What was that last bit? About Teppei Hojo returning to Hinamizawa? Yep, that seems like a thing that's happening for sure. But we'll be right back. In the meantime, here's some corn. We're back. How's it going? Somebody feeling good? We ready to dig into another one? Are we ready for another one? That was certainly quite the tense chapter. Maybe things will calm down a little bit. We get restarted here. Maybe yesterday was a fluke. I mean, a cop's gonna ruin your day anyway. You run into a cop, it's just gonna ruin your fucking day anyway. So, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. Everything's probably still fine.
守りたいと思う心に嘘はなかった。大切にしたいと思う心は誰よりも強いはずだった。優しさから生まれた感情はやがて殺意へと変わり、真っ白だった思いは赤と黒で染まってゆく。それが守りたかった日常の崩壊を意味していると分かっていながら、たたり殺し、何が間違っていたのか、その答えを探して悲劇はさらに広がってゆく。
It's probably fine. It's probably fine.
北条さんは今日もお休みですか？古出さんは何か知っていますか？
The teacher's voice wasn't critical, but Rika-chan hung her head, unable to answer, and I felt badly for her. You also have a damn good cherry pie. Nice. It's a curse killing chapter. We're gonna get rid of that danged old curse is what we're gonna do. That's all this is. It's not a big deal. The teacher called Rika-chan up and they had an exchange in hushed tones at the dais. At first, Rika-chan said that Satoko's fever had grown worse, but everyone in the class knew that was a lie, because every day Rika-chan brought Satoko's bento with her.
Satoko-chan, どうしちゃったんだろうね。
Okay, now I'm starting to worry.
俺が知るかよ。
I'm the one who wants to know most of all. It was already the third day since Satoko's first absence. Ever since then, I haven't felt good. Until the last Sunday, everything had been so much fun. And we spent that time quietly. and we spent that time quietly, but warm and comfortable. So why had it suddenly been flipped over? The more I thought about it, the more I thought that the world had taken a turn for the worse ever since Oishi arrived. Thinking on it now, maybe the strange apprehensions plaguing me that night before Oishi arrived had been a sign. Kurado Oishi, Oyashiro-sama's servant.
そんなことあるもんか。あいつが現れたから、サトコが今年のタタリに会う役だなんて決められてたまるかよ。
Also, it's we got a bit of a storm going on, so just in case, if we end up kind of blinking out, we'll just call it till next stream and then pick up from this chapter. So just in case, like, I think that there's a small storm in the area, and if it knocks us out, we'll just restart this chapter and hit it up next time. Just what sort of slip-up had I committed to cause these fun times to end so suddenly? Yes, it was the day before Oishi appeared. Shion, Neon, and Rena had spoken of the curse surrounding Satoshi and his disappearance, and it was so sinister it gave me bad premonition. Such a small thing was a slip-up and invited Oyashiro-sama's servant. It was absurd. I kept on groaning to myself that I would never accept it, ever. I obviously wasn't the only one suppressing my feelings. Neon and Rena were too. Everyone in the class was doing it. Blame Revan, right? Rika-chan knew something about Satoko's situation, but she wouldn't tell us. Rika-chan still held a calm attitude like a cat basking in the sun, but she was being unbelievably stubborn about this whole thing. She didn't want to tell us, and that wouldn't change no matter how many times we asked her. Everyone understood that, so nobody questioned her.
リカちゃんが言わないならさ、言うまで待つしかないよね。逆に言わないってことは言う必要もない程度のことかもしれないし。
There was no persuasive power in reassurance given with the anxious face like that. Mion was being taciturn. and just looked up at the sky with a somehow annoyed expression. I couldn't tell if she was unhappy that Rika-chan wouldn't talk about it with her own friends, or if she was concerned over Satoko's well-being. And what about me? My anxiety was suffocating me day after day. If someone else were looking at me, then maybe I'd look annoyed, like Mion did. Tap tap. Someone tapped on my shoulder. It was Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun.
前原さん、ちょっといいですか？
またボールが引っかかったか？今度はお前たちで何とかしてみろよ。いつまでも先輩に頼るのは良くないぜ。
I didn't feel like going along with them, so I was a little unsympathetic with my response.
ちょっと気になる噂を聞いたんすよ。
噂？
はい。ひょっとすると関係があるかもと思って。
A rumor about Satoko. They hadn't said that, but it didn't seem unrelated. They didn't want to talk in the classroom, so they pulled me behind the school building, lending further credence to that thought. The back of the school was damp and humid like always. Students didn't really come here because they wanted to. It might, however, have been an ideal location for trading rumors away from prying eyes.
岡村君、その噂話ってもちろん聡子の欠席と関係のある話なんだろうな。
関係があるかはわからないですけど、あるいは
聡子は一体どうしたってんだ？風邪なのか？それともひょっとしてもっと重い病気か怪我か何かで？
いえ、むしろ逆で、うちのばあちゃんの話だと昨日の昼にうちの店に豆腐を買いに来たらしいんです。
Oh, Tomita's family runs a tofu shop at an Okamura. I think it's because they're more familiar than needing a senpai. Like, senpai is a bit more formal, whereas san is kind of more familiar. So I think that's kind of the gist we're going for.
豆腐屋さんに。
And Keiichi himself rarely actually uses honorifics in an interesting note. He only uses them, I think, for Rika, actually.
買い物？
My voice sounds so stupefied, even if I can. That's when he's speaking, not the narration, of course. It was understandable. I was worried about what grave illness or injury she'd had when the person herself had been out and about shopping for tofu.
聡子はどうだったんだよ？元気そうだったのか？それとも病み上がりでマスクでもしてたとか、松葉杖で包帯だらけだったとか？
いえ、別に病気とか怪我とかそういうわけじゃなかったらしいんですが。
I should have felt relieved that it wasn't an illness or an injury, but my anxiety wasn't going away because Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun's expressions weren't looking any better.
絹ごし豆腐を一丁買っていったそうなんですが、ばあちゃんが言うにはおかしいと。
おかしい？なぜ？絹ごし豆腐を買って何が悪い？
Irritated by how roundabout they were being, I had to desperately fight the irritation from creeping into my
北
voice.
条とフルデってほら二人暮らしでそんなにお金持ちってわけじゃないですよね。だから二人はいつも安い木綿豆腐しか買わないんです。一番高い絹ごし豆腐なんか買ったことないんです。
木綿だって絹ごしだってどっちも豆腐だろ。たまにはうまい豆腐が食いたくなっただけかもしれないじゃないか。
それはそうですけど。
I knew how transparent I sounded right then. This wasn't anything trivial, it was some kind of important clue. Not the cheap firm tofu, but the expensive soft kind. Shopping not in the evening after school, but in the middle of the day. I couldn't figure out what those things meant. Although I'd heard about it, Okamura-kun took his turn to speak.
次は僕っすね。これも噂なんですけど。
帰ってきた？何が？誰が？
北条のおじさんが。
Uh-oh. That's a sign. Satoko's uncle, right. I think Coach told me about him. Their aunt and uncle had taken them in after Satoko and Satoshi lost their parents in the accident.
去年のお社様のたたりで怖くなって町に逃げたっていう北条のおじさんです。こいつヤクザみたいな怖くて乱暴なやつで。
Everything Coach told me came back in bits and pieces. Right, the mean aunt and uncle who had tormented them all the time. I think he said that after their aunt was beaten to death by the deviant, he ran away to his lover's house in Okinomiya in fear of the
そい
curse.
つが帰ってくるとどうして聡子が学校を休んで真っ昼間に絹ごし豆腐を買う羽目になるんだ。
Yeah, he would actually be able to work at Nintendo at this point in history. My underclassmen clammed up and looked downwards. There must have been some big hint buried there. Even if I didn't understand, if I told Mio and Aruna about it, maybe they'd know something.
ごめんな二人とも。せっかく好意で話を聞かせてくれたのになんだか問い詰めるような言い方になっちゃって。
あ、いえ、いいんすよ。北条が重病で寝たきりになってないことが分かっただけでもほら儲けもんじゃないですか。
That might be true, but it still won't... It won't make the clouds over my mind fade away.
あ、前原さん、ほらあれ。
Okamura cried wildly, pointing over my shoulder behind me. Startled, I turned around, and way on the other side of the schoolyard, near the school gate, I saw a figure trudging forth. Hey! Hey, you. Hey. Hey, garbage child. Hey, garbage goblin. How you doing? How's it going?
北条だ。
I burst into a run faster than I could speak, so that as quickly as possible I could see with my own eyes that she was okay. Satoko seemed taken aback by me shouting and running over to her.
なんですの圭一さん。突然大声を出して走ってくるから何事かと驚きましたわ。
バカ、俺のことなんかどうでもいいだろう。それよりどうしたってんだよ聡子。3日間も俺心配で。
心配性ですわね。たかだか3日ですわよ。もう圭一さんは心配性なんですから。
No, we're not gonna be sad. It'll be fine. It's fine. It's like, look, our little sister is back. It's gonna be a-okay from here, right? From listening to her, she seemed to have the normal Satoko, but I could tell she was very clearly acting strangely. Her smile was somehow forlorn, and her complexion was bad for some reason.
北条、大丈夫だったのかよ。風邪とかじゃないのか。
Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun both expressed their
一体
concerns.
どうしたってんだよ。3日も俺がどれだけ心配してたか。
ごめん遊ばせですわ。ちょっとお家のお掃除をしたりしてたんですのよ。
Oh boy.
だいぶ長いこと使ってませんでしたから、もう家中ホコリだらけでして。
はあ？聡子、お前何を言ってんだ？なんで家の掃除なんかで学校を休まなきゃなんないんだ？
Satoko didn't answer me. Instead, she passed by me and headed to the entrance.
もう今はお弁当の時間ではありませんの。私はお腹が空いてますのよ。
It was certainly lunch break. I couldn't force her to stop after she told me she wanted lunch since she was so
まあ
hungry.
いいや。リカちゃんは3日間毎日お前の弁当を持ってきてくれてるんだぜ。今日はちゃんと食べてやれそうだな。とにかく早く教室へ行こう。みんなを安心させてやろうぜ。
そうですわね。皆さんにご心配をおかけしてしまったかもしれませんわね。
How inconsiderate of you!
人気者は辛いでございますわ。
I put a hand on Satoko's shoulder and we ran to the classroom together. Up close, I was able to verify that Satoko looked somehow weak. All this anxiety was supposed to go away when I saw her again. That's what I thought. But now I actually started to have quite different fears. What the heck happened to Satoko? Everyone in the class, of course, reacted the same exact way I had. We're worried about you. I'm glad you're well. What were you doing for the last 3 days? Our classmates showered her in questions.
本当にご迷惑をおかけしましたわね。
As she cackled, she chowed down on the bento Rika-chan had made for her. Those in the teacher's lounge must have been informed of Satoko's arrival because her teacher sprinted into the classroom, her breathing ragged.
北条さん。
あら先生、3日間もご心配をおかけしましたわね。ご覧の通り元気でピンピンしてますわ。
もう本当に心配してたんですからね。お弁当が食べ終わったら職員室に来るんですよ。いろいろとお話があります。
3日もサボったからきっと大目玉に違いありませんわね。
Yep, she's ready. She's gonna fucking box some accusations. Satoko left sheepishly while she scratched her head, and the rest of the class burst into laughter. The teacher was acting angry, but she breathed a sigh of relief at seeing Satoko healthy and smiling as she ate her lunch in the class surrounding her.
でも安心したよな、レナ。
あ、ごめん。無事でよかったよね。
I looked at Brenna and knew. She had a sense that something about Satoko was off too. I looked to see Mion detached from the clamor as well, with a somewhat grim expression. But Rika-chan, on the other hand, was smiling from ear to ear. She spread out the bento boxes one by one as Satoko finished them. Where nothing bad happens, at all! Finally, Satoko was satisfied after enjoying a thorough conversation with her classmates. Remembered that she'd been called to the teacher's lounge. Welcome, Iffy. Hope your evening is going well. Everything is nice and relaxing on this Sunday evening for you.
僕も一緒に行きますですよ。
Satoko rises from her seat. Rika-chan runs over to her.
ごめん遊ばせケイチさん。ちょっと怒られてまいりますわ。
おう、なんだったら俺も一緒に付き合うぜ。例のカレーの悪口の時、一緒に職員室で怒られた仲じゃねえか。
それには及ばないのです。
Summer festivals are fun.
ケイチはここでお留守番なのですよ。
Rika-chan's words were gentle, but at the firm rejection was clear in her eyes. The two of them exited the hallway, walking shoulder to shoulder. After seeing them off, the class breathed a collective sigh of relief, broke apart, and went back to their usual lunch break banter. We, however, couldn't get back to how we usually were. Not I, nor not Mion, and of course not Rena. They stared at the classroom exit Satoko and Rika-chan had left through, their expressions a little distant
俺
and
たちは
grim.
仲間だ。そうだろう、みんな。
I blurted out something strange, so Mion and Rena turned around, dubious
俺は
expressions.
仲間に隠し事はしない。
Yeah, that would be the smart play, wouldn't it?
だからさっき聞いたばかりのことを言う。
I told them the stories I'd heard from Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun earlier about the tofu shop and how Satoko's uncle had apparently come back. All at once without letting them
これが
speak.
俺の知るすべてだ。だからミオンもレナもしていることがあるなら話してくれ。俺は俺の知るすべてを話したぞ。
I ended my sentence firmly and looked at Mion and Rena's eyes in turn. Rena stared back at me. Her eyes didn't falter. Without even opening her mouth, I could tell she wasn't hiding anything. Then our gazes turned to Mion.
別に私は隠して黙ってるわけじゃないよ。
So you knew! Mion couldn't seem to endure our silent stares and began to talk timidly as if she was guilty of something.
でもケイちゃんが話したなら私も話さないわけにはいかないよね。
みーちゃん、何か知ってるの？
いや、聡子のおじが帰ってきたっての帰ってきた初日から知ってたよ。この間の日曜日にフラッとひなみ沢に帰ってきたって。
どうしてそれを黙ってた？
ごめん。
My angry shout caused Mion to flinch away, look down, and hang her head uncomfortably.
ケイチ君、怒るようなことじゃないよ。みーちゃん怖がってる。
あ、ごめん。つい大声を。
I lowered my head in apology. Mion accepted it, collected herself, and continued. According to her, her uncle's relationship with his lover, whom he had been with in Okinamiya, had collapsed. Without anywhere to go, he went back home to Hinamizawa, and on that Sunday, the day of the barbecue, her uncle ran into Satoko and brought her back to the house.
自宅になんで連れ戻すんだよ。
ろくでなしの怠け者だからね。自分一人じゃ炊事はおろか掃除一つできないし。
そんな炊事やお掃除のためにさとこちゃんを連れ戻したっていうの？
I remember that she said she'd been cleaning the house when I met her back at the school gate. A moment later, the pieces fell into place, into the jigsaw puzzle of unease. And as for what the puzzle depicted when I saw it from afar, I could see the answer clearly.
さとこが家に閉じ込められて、いじめられながら家事をやらされてる。
I'm just gonna warn people ahead of time. Satoko's story is not a fun one. It's gonna be very uncomfortable. She's had it rough, and it's going to continue being rough. So if that's something you're not sure you can handle, let that be your warning. That yeah, girl's gonna be going through some shit, unfortunately.
っていう噂なんだよ。
If you knew that, then why didn't you speak up? I nearly yelled at Mion, but hastily stopped myself.
みーちゃん、それ本当なの？
私がこの目で確かめたわけじゃないから本当かどうかは知らないけど。
Mion looked down again and, staring at the floor, grew quiet.
去年みたいに？意地悪なおじさん夫婦のところで暮らしてた時みたいに？
でもさ、そのおじさんって家事はからっきしなんだろ。さとこが重宝なわけだから、何もひどい扱いをしているってわけじゃないかもしれないだろ。
Oh, we're dropping frames. Give me a moment. I'm gonna let this settle down. This seems to happen pretty commonly at this specific time, weirdly enough. So we're gonna give this a few minutes to see if it stabilizes. Boy, them frames, they just love dropping. But again, I record locally as well, so that'll probably be the archive that goes up on the old YouTube. Yo, frame, you want to calm down? Can we stop, please? Yeah, we're waiting it out. We're gonna wait it out. It solved itself after a minute or two the other night, so I'll give it a couple minutes. Like, it's just at a constant dip right now for some reason. And I don't know why. It's distorting the already creepy music with... It's mood! Yeah, it's a mood! Yeah, sometimes to get the variable bitrate thing to calm down, a quick refresh will take care of that, but man, we are just still dropping frames constantly now. Like, just non-stop. Like, it's just staying red on my end. Like I said, I will wait here for a moment just to see if things kind of even out a little bit. God, yeah, it's just... It is not stopping. It's just dropping like crazy. So that's fun. That's definitely what's happening. Okay. Did we stop? Did we stop? Are we good? Did you get done choking on me? It looks like we're back to normal. We just dropped a hefty chunk of frames there, but it looks like it's settling down now. So you might maybe give yourself a refresh, and then we'll get right back to it. So it looks like it's settled down now, though. So, all right, here we go. But this uncle is completely helpless when it comes to housework, right? If Satoko is that important, then there wouldn't be any reason to torment her, would there?
Keiichi-kun, 何を根拠に言ってるのか知らないけど、いい加減なことは言わない方がいいよ。
She's got a point. Rena clearly and directly got mad at me. You wouldn't know much about this, so don't talk as though you do. Yes, that's clearly what she meant.
じゃあレナは知ってるのかよ。
私だって知らないよ。今ここで聞くまで、さとこちゃんがおじさんの家に連れ戻されたなんて知らなかったもの。でもね、1年前とはまるで状況が違うの。
状況が違うってどういうことだよ。
サトシ君がいない。
サトシはすごく妹思いのいい兄だったんだよ。いつもサトコをかばってた。意地悪なおじおばのとばっちりが少しでもサトコにかぶらないように盾になってくれてた。
家には意地悪なおじさんとサトコちゃんが2人きりなんだよ。それがどれだけ行き詰まるものか、圭一君にだって想像がつくんじゃないかな。ひなみ沢に帰ってきた理由だって一緒に暮らしてた相手が失踪して生活できなくなったからでしょ。
Yep, this is bad. This is
そんな
bad.
不快な理由で帰ってきた人がどうしてサトコちゃんに優しくできるっていうの？
Yeah, I know, right? She was right. It wasn't easy for me to imagine Satoko not being tormented.
ごめん。
こっちこそごめん。問い詰めるような口調になっちゃったね。
An awkward atmosphere floated among us. The three of us remained silent and just stared at the floor. Finally, we heard the principal's bell ringing. The teacher came back with Satoko and Rika-chan at her
さあ
side.
さあ、午後の授業を始めますよ。委員長、号令。起立。
ごめんなさいね。失礼。
I couldn't read anything from Satoko's vaguely sheepish expression, but given the clouded look Rika-chan was wearing behind her, it was tough to laugh off the disquieting story I had heard from Mion. Yeah, Mion is all the CPS I'll ever need.
よーし、久々に全メンバーが揃ったからね。久しぶりにパーッと大部活で盛り上がろうじゃないの。
Yeah, perfect. Indeed, at times like these, its best thing to do was obviously get rowdy and scheme against one another in a club activity. We're back to fun club activities! See? It's fine.
望むところだよ。ねえ、さとこちゃん。やろう。
サトコが好きだったゲームあるでしょ。ほら、なんだったっけ。なんでも構わないよ。言ってみ。
Mion laughed happily, looking at a bunch of games out of the club locker and lined them up on the desks. I think that was the first time Mion's ever let someone else decide on a game for her. I could tell she was being especially considerate of Satoko, thinking that whatever her circumstances, if we could just enjoy our time together as a group, that might be some comfort, some diversion. Satoko seemed to understand her feelings too and smiled vaguely, though pleased. But her head slowly moved from side to side.
ありがたいですけど、お気持ちだけで結構ですわ。いろいろしなければならないことがありますので。
Even Rika-chan hung her head in remorse.
おいおいおいおいおい、本気なわけ？部活メンバーが久しぶりに揃ったってのにお流れになっちゃうわけ？敵前逃亡は罰ゲームってのは海賊第何条だったっけ？
Exactly, Mion's got a point. You can't just abandon games with friends, right?
やめなよ、みーちゃん。無理に付き合わせちゃダメだよ。
別におじさんは無理強いしてるわけじゃないよ。ただ大盛り上がりした方が絶対に楽しいと思って。
Of course there's a club constitution. Why wouldn't there be?
本当にお気持ちだけで嬉しいんですのよ。
You don't think Mion would already have that drafted up?
ご安心なさいませ。次に戦うときは皆さんまとめてでっかい罠にはめてご覧に入れますわ。
Satoko, while insulting us, still said she couldn't participate in the club today and apologized. She quickly put her things in her bag and pattered out of the hallway, disappearing. It all happened in the blink of an eye.
さとこ。
Rika-chan stared lonesomely as her friend hurried home, unable to be a part of club activities. Silence filled the classroom. Both the cheerful voices of our classmates in the schoolyard and the voices of the cicadas sounded like they were coming from some faraway world.
つまんないの？
The silence was broken by Mion's bitterness as she began putting the games on the desk back into the locker. Everyone just stared absently as Satoko's seat was now empty.
リカちゃん、そろそろ話してくれてもいいんじゃないかな。
Rena made as gentle a smile as she possibly could and spoke softly to Rika-chan, even though, hearing it from her, we pretty much knew the situation at this point. Satoko's uncle had broken up with his lover and come back home to Hinamizawa, and he had taken Satoko back home and forced her to do all the household work, and that had to be pretty rough on her. Thinking this was common knowledge to everyone, I skipped to the important part. I mean, what can they do? They are children. I mean, there's not a lot they can do at this moment in time, like, legally. Like, there has to be actual evidence of abuse, and that's not what they have here. They have situation. I mean, they've got evidence the situation is bad. They know that it's bad, but there's really nothing they can do or prove right now. They can go and see the situation, which they haven't done yet, but Vivian and Rena wanted to ask the same question. Nobody spoke. Well, we all just stared, waiting for Rika-chan's reply. Rika-chan still didn't answer us. I'm sure that these are questions that are going to be answered by the visual novel, too. The situation is very complicated and unfair in Hinamizawa, as I'm sure you know. And Mion is in a precarious situation of her own, obviously. Like, she knows what's going on, but she is also one of the three families who opposed the dam. And there's a lot of ingrained shit going on here right now. Which, it's all going to kind of bubble its way to the top. Don't worry. We were hoping for her to say no, but her silence was bad enough sign.
おじ夫婦の元にいた時もこんな状況だったんだろう。
うん。あの時は夫婦喧嘩のとばっちりみたいなのがほとんどだったからさ。こうして部活で時間を潰して 家にいる時間を極力減らすのも
And
一つの手だったんだけ
this is
ど
why the club exists. The club basically was formed to keep them out of the house as much as possible.
今は家事を強制されてるから学校に残ることもできないんだね。
Shit. Satoko's not a slave. Who do you think you are, ignoring your own inability to live properly and basically putting Satoko under house
常
arrest?
識的に考えてこんなのおかしいんじゃねえのか。いろいろと状況証拠は必要だろうけど、こういうのって問題だろ。警察とかに通報できないのかよ。
そうだよね。証拠とかがあれば警察に通報できると思うよ。あるいはそういうのって沖宮の相談所の人とかに相談できないの？
Rena and I kept saying police, police, as if it were nothing, but Mion's response sounded like she thought that we were a little naive.
みんな簡単に言ってくれるけどさ、
Mion's like, you think the police are gonna do anything? Only trust your fists!
それを立証するリスクを考えたことある？
リスクってなんだよ。
一昨年の冬かな。通報したんだよ。沖宮の相談所に。問題があるからすぐに何とかしてくれって。
そうだったんだ。それで？
電話してすぐに職員の人が来てくれたよ。で、聡子とか聡とかに事情聴取してた。ついでにおじ夫婦のところにもね。
聡子と聡に聞くまではいいが、おじ夫婦にまで聞くのはまずいんじゃないのか。
両者の意見を聞いて総合的に判断するんだとさ。ご立派ご立派。
See, she knows the system is trash.
で、結果はどうだったの？
様子見。
様子見ってなんだよそれ。
おじさんとっても勉強になっちゃったんだけどさ、法律ではね、暴行か育児放棄が認められなきゃ虐待とは言わないんだってさ。聡子も聡もよくくずかれてたらしいけど、別に傷跡が残るようなレベルじゃなかったし。
Yeah, it's why this arc is really fucking hard.
3食の飯も一応食えてたし、寝床もあったし、心理的外傷を与える言動だって別にカセットテープで証拠があったわけじゃないし、実際村の人たちだって実際に乱暴してる現場は見たことないから。
There's a very realness to this kind of abuse. And like, yeah, like having known people that have gone through abuse to where the outward appearance would be that there is no abuse, but knowing what they go through behind closed doors, I get why this is playing out the way it is being played out.
いくら意地悪だからって人前で乱暴はしないでしょ、誰だって。
で、その後どうなったの？
しばらくは毎週決まった日に担当の職員さんが訪問してたみたい。おじ夫婦も自分たちが見張られてることを気にして目立つ行動はしなくなったらしいけど、それで済むわけないでしょ普通。
より陰湿ないじめ方に加速していったってことだね。
Mion sighed and nodded.
おばのやつが特にねちっこくってさ、女特有の陰湿さっていうのかな、相当いやらしいことをしてたらしいよ。聡子、最後の方は呼吸するだけのボロ人形みたいだった。
So what? From that conclusion, does that mean that they never should have contacted child welfare in the first place?
わかった？誰の目にも明らかな虐待の証拠がなかったらお手上げなんだよ。むしろ状況を悪化させかねない。あれは失敗だった。
After hearing that even public organizations, the one thing they thought was dependable, couldn't do anything, everyone hung their heads.
つまり 誰の目にも明らかな虐待の証拠が見つかるまで通報すべきでないってことなんだね。
まあそういうこと。
I considered Satoko's current situation. She was brought back to her house. It was a little difficult to call that abuse. She was being tormented and forced to do chores. How was she being tormented? How she was being tormented would be the key, but without concrete evidence, it would be difficult to prove. If she had some kind of external injury, that would work, but as far as we could tell from today, she had nothing like that. And being forced to do chores, that was a bit weak too. There had to be better evidence that she was without a doubt being abused. I know. Her uncle had ignored Satoko's existence for a whole year and went to live with his lover in town. Didn't that fall under one of the definitions of abuse that Mion had mentioned? Child neglect?
それは立派な育児放棄だね。どうなのみーちゃん。
おじが今もいなければ育児放棄は認定されそうだけど、今この瞬間は同居してるわけでしょ。今までは別居だったけど、心を入れ替えて同居することにしたなんて言われたら、また様子見なんてことになりかねないよ。
Yeah, and it sucks seeing her come to this conclusion, but the systems that govern this shit are really this bad. They are legitimately this fucking terrible. Once we reported it, we would need to be absolutely sure they'd interpreted it as abuse. Maybe we needed far more concrete evidence, lest we repeat last year's
なんだ
mistake.
か悲しい。ということはつまり、しばらくは黙って見てろってことなんだよね。
The only plan I could think of was, in the end, just watching and waiting. It left me in shock when I realized that it would be the same policy as that of the officials who had made the situation worse. As Mion said, reporting it to a public agency would be a gamble. If we're going to pick a fight, it would have to be one we couldn't afford to lose. If we were gambling without enough money, without enough evidence, our defeat would be assured. If we took the time to amass enough money, that could be sure of victory. Then that would mean pretending we didn't see Satoko's plight for a considerable amount of time.
こんなところで話を振ってごめんな。リカちゃんはどうして一人暮らしができるんだ？
Rika-chan had lost her parents, if I recalled correctly. From what I'd heard, she had no relatives either. She was forced to live on her own as a result, but her life was unfettered, free of restriction. If she could somehow grant that freedom to Satoko, too...
リカちゃんって両親いないのに生活してるだろ。保護者のいない子供って施設みたいなところに入れられちゃうんじゃないっけ？
圭一君、それひどい。
Yeah, that's rough.
悪口で言ってるんじゃねえよ。そこにサトコを救うヒントがあるかもしれないと思って聞いてみただけなんだ。リカちゃん、気分を害したならごめんな。
Rika-chan shook her head, not particularly disturbed.
それはですね、実は村長さんちの子供になっているからなのです。
補足がいるね。村長の君吉のおじいちゃんがリカちゃんの保護者なんだよ。ちゃんと県知事の許可を得た正式な。
へえ、養子みたいなものか？
養子とは違う。別に籍を入れなくても保護者にはなれるんだよ。
あ、分かってきた。つまりリカちゃんは普通に暮らしてるけど、法律の上では村長さんの家に住んでることになってるんだね。
まあそんなとこ。そのおかげでリカちゃんが保護者から離れての生活を認められているってわけ。サトコはそこに居候してるってことになるけどね。
難しいことはよくわかりませんが、つまりはそういうことなのです。
ミオ、今興味深いことを言ったな。席が違っても保護者になれるみたいなことを言ったよな。
You see, like, I think the only mistake that was made here is that maybe Kimiyoshi, in the intervening time that the uncle and aunt had moved, or the uncle had moved away because he was afraid of the curse, is maybe Kimiyoshi could have also become Satoko's guardian. But, again, there are issues with that, with concerning the politics within Hinamizawa itself, and why he probably couldn't or didn't do that. And yeah, it reads like it's coming from something very real. It's you can't sit here and make jokes about this. I can't sit here and call her garbage child and that be funny right now. It's a very serious and very grounded story that, again, having had friends that went through shitty ass childhood like that, I can't be here and sit here and be entertaining about that.
じゃあ形だけでも村長さんとかが里子の保護者になってくれればいいんじゃないのか?
Oh, well, there you go. They're just saying it after I say it. Okay. Then she'd be in the same position as Rika-chan, and she could go back to her old life.
ところがそうはいかないの。だっておじだって保護者のつもりなんだもん。
ちょっと待て、わけがわからなくなったぞ。そもそも保護者ってなんだ?
In legal terms, a guardian and a parent weren't necessarily synonyms, so whoever was actually looking after her at home would be considered her
なら
guardian.
おじは保護者じゃないな。ずっと里子をほったらかしにしてた。
でも保護者だと主張されたらそれまでだよ。里子が連れ戻されてから数日、その間の食事代はおじの財布から出てるよね。一応面倒を見てると主張できなくもない。それに1年間里子をほったらかしたとはいえ、最初の1年間は生活の面倒を見た実績がある。でも村長にはその実績はない。
意地悪なおじさんと村長さんが同時に保護者を主張したら、おじさんの方が強いってこと？
その可能性が高いってこと。それに保護者ってのは実際に面倒を見てる人を指すんだよ。実際に寝床や食事を握ってるおじと名義だけ貸そうとしてる村長じゃどうにもならない。
Oh God, it sucks.
じゃあ
Just
村長
really
が
sucks.
実際に生活の面倒を見ればいいじゃないか。そうすれば名実ともに村長が保護者になれるんだろう。
We need to shelter Satoko. That might lead her uncle to being desperate and take her back, but will stubbornly refuse him.
そんな簡単にはいかないよ。
Idealistic, Keiichi. Idealistic. Exactly, Rika can be your guardian. She's got suspenders on her skirt. If that's not the mark of maturity, I don't know what is.
里子は育ち盛りの女の子なんだよ。人間一人の面倒を見てくださいなんて、猫の子預けるのとはわけが違う。
じゃあ監督はどうだよ。監督ってよくは知らないけど裕福なんだろ。自分で言ってたくらいなんだし。
Yeah, like Keiichi being where he's at mentally. Like, this is written very, very well. It's either very empathetic from having seen it happen, or it's an experience. Like, it's very much like the house in Fata Morgana, where a lot of the stuff in that visual novel feels very lived in or experienced and researched. This feels like a very natural reaction.
本当の親でなくても保護者になれるなら監督でも可能なんだ。監督なら里子の面倒を立派に見てくれる気がする。
だから里子をペットみたいに考えないでって。
And that's another good point.
ケイちゃんはさっきから里子を誰かに押し付ける話ばっかり。人間一人の生活の面倒を見る責任ってものをもっと慎重に考えて。監督に聞いたの。里子を引き取って面倒を見るってちゃんと確約を得たわけ？
そんなの得てないよ。でも監督なら絶対に OK するだろう。
But that doesn't mean shit, dude.
まあいいよ。100歩譲って監督が OK したとするよ。でもダメなんだよ。保護者は独身じゃダメなんだよ。
That's right, Coach. Didn't he say it himself? He was alone, so he couldn't do it. shit. What the hell? Why is being single such a disadvantage in this society? Then all you could do is marry into a wealthy family, couldn't you? Yeah, you're just floundering right now, my
南沢
dude.
にそんなお金持ちはいるのかな。難しそう
ね。
Oh, that really makes a lot of sense. He probably got to see a lot of this shit go down. Then, yeah. I did not know that Ryukishi actually did government work before this, and that this is shit he probably actually ran into. Okay, that actually tells you how it's really grounded then.
簡単じゃないんだよ。人間一人引き取るってのは。誰かに押し付けようなんて短絡的な考えがそもそもダメなの。考えが浅いんだよ、ケイちゃんは。
なんなんだよ、畜生畜生。
Like, yeah, he would have the ability to write from both sides of that equation, both knowing the bullshit that is the law and having probably seen many people be this desperate to get somebody out of a shitty situation. Yeah, like that's...
俺は必死にサトコを救おうと考えてるのに、
boy.
ダメだってそればっかり。お前ら本当はサトコのことなんかどうでもいいんだろ。仲間のこと本気で心配してないんだろ。どうなんだよ。
そんなつもりないよ。でもそう簡単にはいかないっていうか。
そんな難しい話じゃねえだろ。裕福なやつがサトコをしばらく面倒見てくれればいい。それだけのことだぞ。
Oh, Keiichi. Poor Keiichi.
そうだ、日本地はどうだよ。お前御三家とかいう立派な家柄なんだって自慢してたよな。話じゃものすごいでかい家に住んでるそうじゃないか。
うち？
Oh boy.
無理
Yeah.
無理。そんなのバチャが許してくれるはずない。
じゃあ沖宮に住んでる親はどうだよ。聞いた話じゃこっちもかなりの豪邸に住んでるらしいじゃないか。町には親類の経営する店がたくさんあるそうだし、立派な資産家じゃないかよ。おい、
ダメ。沖宮の家なんてもっとダメ。うちのお父さんそんなの絶対に許さない。
おい、普段は散々大物ぶりを自慢しといて、ここ一番で及び腰かよ。
Yeah, like Oreo is gonna be the one standing in the way of all of that shit.
なんだよお前、サトコを見殺しにする気かよ。
Somebody needs to smack the shit out of this boy right now.
そんなつもりはないけど。そりゃ私だってサトコを助けてやりたいよ。
Yeah, like he does not understand. Yeah, like, and the soundscape stuff they're doing is really, really good. Yep, like Raven basically nailed it.
でもそれとこれじゃ話が。
Like there are many factors that stand in the way of this working right
話
now.
が違うってのかよ。冷てえやつ。仲間の危機だろ。ここで救わなかったら何なんだよ。部長だろ。部活の救えよ、仲間の危機をよ。今ここで救わなかったら仲間じゃねえ、人じゃねえ。
Wow! Jesus!
お前の人間性が問われてるんだよ。
Wow! This is a lot. Man! Woof! Whoa.
聞いてるのかよ、見ろ。
My emotions all exploded out of me, and I didn't even give her a chance to say anything in response. I just wanted to make Mion agree with me, even if I had to force her. If she did, Satoko's problems would be solved. If pushing her would solve the issue, then I'd push her as much as I needed
何
to.
さっきから黙り込んでんだよ。聞いてるのかこの野郎。どうなんだよ。なんとか言ってるよ、園崎見よ。
みー、
Don't go making Mion cry. That's a bad thing to do. Remember what happened when you did that last time? Mion, looking down with a grim face, began sobbing. Her hands were clenched in a trembling fist, and she rubbed her eyes to wipe away the tears. Was what I said actually that Keiichi, yes! This isn't a time to cry. We're in the gambling room now, and we have to do something to save Satoko. As I thought that, Rena spoke, her voice cold and incredibly calm.
ケイチ君、みーちゃん家がダメなら他の裕福な家を探したら？私、ひなみ沢に立派な豪邸建てて住んでる。
Oh shit!
知ってるよ。
Oh. I know where she's going with this.
誰だよ。
白々しいよ。あれだけ立派な家に住んでて、自分の家だけは蚊帳の外。
俺んちかよ。俺の家は。
仲間なんでしょ？救ってよ、ケイチ君は。
God damn!
みーちゃんはダメだってさ、冷たいから。
Oh my god!
じゃあ仲間思いのケイチ君がお手本示さなきゃダメだね。
God damn!
あれだけ大きなお家に家族3人で住んでるんだっけ？じゃあ空き部屋なんかいくらでもあるよね。余ってるお部屋いくつかさとこちゃんに分けてあげればいいじゃない。それでめでたくさとこちゃんの悩みは解決。あら何？
Wow!
これでもう終わり？
Wow! She go hard! Oh my god!
あっけない話だったね。はいはい解決、お疲れ様。
Wow! Oh my god! Woo!
じゃあもう今日はいい？
She is absolutely right!
私帰るね。ランランラン。
Wow!
今日は久しぶりに宝探しにでも行こうかな。
Fuck! Dude!
昨日まではずっとさとこちゃんのことが心配で全然遊ぶ気になんかならなかったし、今日はどんな宝物が見つかるかな。なんか言ってよ。私だけ喋りずくめ。
Wow!
黙ってんじゃないわよ。聞いてんの？前原圭一。
Jesus Christ! That expression! This girl's fucking serious. Jesus Christ! She is angry. Holy shit! Even the cicadas seemed to cower in fear. Rena, her shoulders bobbing up and down, and me, who had forgotten to breathe. Mion, whose face had gone completely pale, and Rika-chan, who was keeping silent as if nothing had happened. The atmosphere in the room grew tight and stiff, as if petrified by where we stood. The sound of the chair as Rena sat back down after having stood up finally allowed everyone present to take a breath. Okay. That was, wow. That was a moment. Jesus fucking Christ.
レナが怖いのです。
After a few moments, Rika-chan cut into the frozen air.
ごめんね、リカちゃん。みーちゃんもごめん。ケイチ君には謝らなくてもいいよね。
I don't think you do. I don't think you do.
ごめん。
Girls got words that cut like an axe. Jesus
めちゃくちゃなこと言っ
Christ.
て悪かった。
We've not seen her go that fucking hard on Keiichi. And she's gone pretty hard on him in the last two arcs. Like, she's had that moment in the last two arcs both times so far where she's had to go after him for something. We ain't seen it that fucking brutal. Jesus Christ.
さっきのあれ、私に言ってたの？みーちゃん睨みながら言ってたから、 私てっきりみーちゃんに言ってるもんだとばかり思ってた。
Rena had such strength that you wouldn't have imagined it normally. All I did was spout terrible things as a wave of violent fury passed over me. I couldn't contend with her.
ごめん、頭に血が上ってた。
Come to think of it, I didn't understand what had gotten me that riled up. I thought of myself as Satoko's Nini. So I only had good intentions that I'd think about it a little harder than everyone else, and yet...
いいよ。私こそケイちゃんが一生懸命悩んでるのに、あれはダメこれはダメばっかり言って、ごめんね。私も悪かった。
Mion rubbed away the tears in the corners of her eyes with her fists and apologized as well. We bowed our heads to each other and looked down without glancing at the other. Someone, I don't know who, heaved a sigh. Satoko being tormented had been known about since last year. How had the tragedy back then saved Satoko? How had they brought it to an end? Right. In the end, nobody could do anything. Yeah, like in this one, he's just being cruel in an extremely normal, everyday way. Absolutely. All they could do was bear it patiently and wait for those agonizing days to end. That's right. The one who brought an end to those terrible days was some crazy drug addict nobody knew. On the night of Watanagashi last year, their mean aunt had been beaten to death, but it hadn't been done to save Satoko or Satoshi. Right. It really was just a coincidence. Satoko's friends, who needed to do something for her most of all, could do nothing. The incident may have been a tragic one, but from Satoko's viewpoint, it was nothing less than a miracle. Yes, a miracle. A miracle one could only wait for.
待つしかないのかよ。俺たちには。
Not for evidence of abuse, but for something more minor.
何をかな。
奇跡。
No one made fun of me for using such a crazy word. We couldn't come up with any solutions, so it was the only thing we could do.
無力なんだよ。私たちは。
The one word Mion dropped was the finishing blow. It was hot. My body was sticky with sweat. The worst month. June. Oof. Yeah, things got a little heavier. Whew. But with we still got like a half a chapter here to go, so. Whew. God. I walked forward quite a ways, then turned right where the fields ended. I'd never come here before, so I had no idea where to go. I got lost several times, so I may have taken quite a long way around. Maybe I should have gone back home and gotten my bike first. It would have made everyone else worry if I'd asked them, so I asked one of our other classmates where Satoko's actual house was. You missed a bit. Oh boy, you'll probably want to watch the VOD of this one. Some shit. Whew, it was heavy. It was one of the heaviest moments of this entire series so far, I think. The house was originally her family's, apparently, not their uncle and his wife's. Their house had been bigger, so they had taken it for themselves. Right here, several houses all in a line. Over there? I was visiting Satoko's house, but didn't particularly intend to meet her there. I didn't mean to spy on the enemy, her mean uncle, either. Maybe I just wanted to be a little closer to her as her Nini. Pretty words, but I didn't know if they were true. If what Tomita-kun and the others told me was right, it'd be this house. When I recognized it, my feet grew heavy. What did I come here for? My motive for coming here was absurd. When Mion had said at the end that we were powerless, it made me sort of frustrated. I just wanted to do something, anything other than waste the days away praying for a miracle. That's what made me come here. But that was all. Even if I were to witness her uncle actually tormenting Satoko, what could I do? Would I act like a comic book hero, punch the guy in the face, and take Satoko away with me? And then live together somewhere far away? That was ridiculous.
無力だ。
The cicadas' voices, raised in choruses, sounded like they were scoffing at me, as though they were saying that if I couldn't do anything and wouldn't do anything, then I should just go back home. I heard a car approaching as I got out of its way, but the car stopped right behind me, its horn honking shortly one. Annoyed, hadn't I gotten out of their way? I looked behind me, and a familiar face was looking at me out the driver's seat window.
監督。
こんにちは、前原さん。
I was thinking it was Domo.
こんなところでお会いするとは本当に奇遇です。お家は近くなんですか？
Me being here wasn't normal. Just as I considered somehow giving him the slip, I noticed Satoko sitting in the passenger seat.
サトコ？
Satoko got out of the car and began unloading a lot of groceries from the trunk.
買い物の帰りに偶然監督にお会いしたんですのよ。送ってくださるというのでお言葉に甘えたのですわ。
自転車でこんなに買い物をしたら運びきれませんからね。
As Coach spoke, he pulled Satoko's bike from out of the back seat where they'd put it. The grocery bags were big, and there were 4 of them. They all seemed to be packed full and very heavy.
セブンスマート？おいおい、自転車で行くにはちょっと遠すぎないか？
I looked at the bags and saw that they were filled to the brim with sake bottles, snacks you'd eat with sake, and boxes of cigarettes. Their weight was one thing, but their contents were nothing less than luxury items.
監督のおかげで助かりましたわ。ちょっと坂道は辛かったですから。
Satoko gave Coach a smile filled with gratitude, but it was incredibly awkward and even heartbreaking.
サトコ、この買い物、今晩の晩飯ってわけじゃないだろう。
当然ですわ。私、お酒なんか飲めませんし、おつまみも嫌いですし、タバコなんか吸うわけ。
I would hope not. I would hope not. He made Satoko go to a distant store by herself on her bike so that she could buy dumb shit like this. And what was the uncle doing right now anyway? He must have been working up a good sweat at this very moment if he needed to send Satoko out by herself, right? If not, then how much had Satoko suffered for no reason? I hadn't intended to voice my feelings, but they may have made it into my face. Coach might have noticed because he clapped me on the shoulder. Just then, one of the house windows clattered open, and the face of a vulgar man with the very sight of which made me immediately avert my eyes emerged from within it. There was no self-introductions necessary. My gut told me that this was their uncle in question. The first thing out of his mouth should have been words of gratitude for Satoko.
サトコ、缶のガスかけっぱなしで出よったんな、この。
ごめんなさい。でもすぐに買いに行けって言ったから。
やかましいわ。せっかくの近所台無しにしよってん。どうしよってんじゃ。
ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい。
Satoko miserably apologized over and over, bowing again and again. She could be perfectly described as a small animal. I had no idea what was happening. Satoko finished shopping, and all this heavy stuff wasn't even for dinner. She only managed to come back because she ran into Coach and he drove her home. If she hadn't been found by him, she'd surely still be by herself, panting and moaning, pedaling her bicycle up that steep hill. What was with those words, these horrible, sleazy words that he had said to Satoko? In what country's dictionary did it tell him to say such things to a young girl who had just finished shopping? My anger, of course, wouldn't reach him. The uncle displayed no interest in me, instead shouting at Coach.
入江の先生じゃないですか。こんにちは。つったら先生も上がっていきますか。もうオーラスですからすぐ入れますよ。ピンのワンツー、何でもありで。
いえ、遠慮します。さとこちゃんとは偶然お会いしたんで、ちょっとお送りしてあげただけです。すぐに失礼します。
そんなちょっとぐらいやってってくださいな。先生お金持ちじゃないですか。
Yeah, Mion does have a gun. We must remember this. Aerosmith even wrote a song about it. I didn't even understand what her uncle and coach were talking about, but I knew one thing for sure. None of what he had just said had been to thank Satoko in any way.
とっととカキも持ってこんかい。ビールも冷めてもうた。冷蔵庫から冷えてるの出してくれな。
てっちゃん、娘に厳しすぎや。もうちょいいたわらんとかわいそうやで。
あんな娘にゃこの兄貴んちにいた頃からそうでよ。甘やかすと親の言うことをなんも聞かんやっちゃう。
それよか、てっちゃんの妻だぜよ。
椿さんリーチしよったで。
おお、悪い悪い。なんだ椿、あんたまたリーチかいな。
It looked like it wasn't just her uncle. Some of his friends were over. Hey, wait. What was he... No, what were they doing? Flinging rude words left and right, making Satoko go shopping for your beer. What were they doing?
町からおじさまのお友達が来てて宴会やってますの。お友達のお夕食もご用意するように言われてますのよ。
なんだよ、それ。
Mahjong? He called his friends over for Mahjong, and they were too busy playing, so they sent Satoko to buy them a crapload of booze in a faraway store. And the first thing he said to her was how she left the gas on? What the hell? What the hell? What the hell?
何やってんだよ、あいつ。マーちゃんってそんなのに遊びほうけて、さとこにこんなの買いに行かせるのかよ。
Even though Coach was listening, he pretended he wasn't. There was a line of heavy-looking shopping bags lying on the ground next to the trunk.
さあ、前原さんも手伝ってあげてください。ほら、男の子なんですから、こっちの。
監督、こんなのまかり通っていいんですか？こんなの絶対に。
Coach pretended he hadn't heard the violent outburst either. When I thought about it later, his reaction might have been the best thing he could do in this situation.
私も2つ持ちますから。ほら、前原さんも持つのを手伝ってあげてください。
The bags were packed to the brim with bottles of sake and bar snacks. They were so heavy, and so filthy, so unfair. They weren't just heavy in terms of weight, they made me feel mortified. Nothing could have been heavier than that.
ケイチさん、大丈夫ですのよ。自分で持ちますわ。
No, you will not. Satoko mistook my biting back at the humiliation as grimacing under the weight and offered to help.
俺をなめるな。
Satoko had never looked down on my physical strength in the slightest.
監督もすみませんわね。重いでしょ？
No, not at all, answered Coach, smiling vaguely, coolly. But I, and I alone, knew. Coach was an adult, so he just knew how to keep his feelings from showing. There was even more anger than I was feeling, burning deep in his eyes.
いや、重いですね。
Shit. It wasn't very fair. It wasn't very far to the doorstep of Satoko's house, but the bag squeezed my palms and started leaving red marks. Fury welled up in me and the back of my throat stung, but even if it all came gushing out, it wouldn't solve anything. So, just tightly gritting my teeth as much as I could do.
本当にありがとうございますですわ。監督もケイチさんも。おかげで本当に助かりましたでございます。
After we carried them to the back door, Satoko said that was enough. Occasionally, we'd hear the repulsive laughter of her uncle and her friends, from within, from her uncle and his friends from within, and my insides would seethe. I knew they were ridiculing us, and that was why it made me so mad. They'd made Satoko shop for all this heavy, selfish stuff, then ignored her and laughed amongst themselves as they pleased. It was deeply aggravating. Of course, Coach had to have felt the same way, but if he accidentally let his feelings slip into his face, he'd only cause Satoko more worry. He knew all that, and spoke coolly as if to say he didn't care.
いいえ。ささやかでもお力になれたなら幸いです。お手伝いできそうなことがあったらいつでも言ってくださいね。
Yep, boys got a lot of hard lessons to learn this time around, I think.
お気持ちだけでも本当に嬉しいですわ。
That he feels that way, those words were sad. Satoko herself was sad and resigned, and we could only help her so much. But she was right. No matter how much Coach or I want to help Satoko, this was as much as we could do. I felt absolutely ashamed at not having the power to help her any more than this. Burning, boiling emotions were bubbling up from within me and rising into my throat. Trembling all over, I almost started to cry from my fury.
力になれることがあったらいつでも力を貸すから。頑張れよな。
I wanted to, at least, give her those trite words, saying that I'd help her whenever she wanted.
ありがとうございますわ。わざわざこうしてここまで来てくださっただけでも嬉しかったですわ。
Yep, like it's very true to reality. It's like you get that moment where reality finally sets in, smacks you upside the fucking head, and it sucks. Satoko seemed to have guessed what I was doing in a place like this, when my house was in the opposite direction from school.
さあ、もう行った方がよろしいですわ。今は酔っ払ってますから、どんな難癖をつけられるかわかりませんわよ。
She felt guilty getting us involved after we'd helped her, because she wanted to be the only one to suffer this misfortune. That's how it looked, and it hurt. I handed my supermarket bag over to Satoko, and then I noticed the back of Satoko's hand. There was something that looked like a bruise.
おい、サトコ、お前まだ熱が。
I knew as much as anyone else how transparent that sounded. I didn't need to hear it from Satoko to know how this bruise came to be.
今年の夏風邪はなかなかしつこいようですわね。気になさらないでくださいませ。
嘘だろ。
Coach nudged me in the back, and then he put his index finger to his mouth to chide me for being so loud.
本当にありがとうございましたですわ。では明日学校でお会いできるといいですわね。
そんな話してないだろ。その手のあざはどうしたって聞いてるんだよ。
The evening glow finally got to a point where I could see the other concealed oval-shaped bruises and traces of swelling on her neck and her legs and other places too.
階段から落ちたんですのよ。
The very moment my violent rampaging emotions were about to burst their way out of my throat, I found my mouth being tightly clamped down on. Coach was pressing down on my mouth from behind, wrapping around me tightly with his hands. Because of that, I couldn't say anything. I could only groan, which I did. That was all I could do. I needed to expel all that magma sitting deep within me, because otherwise I'd surely explode into a million pieces that very moment. So I groaned from my mouth, from my whole body, while the heat fell in drips from my eyes. I groaned and groaned. I groaned to the point of exhaustion. I wrung absolutely everything out of myself. Even having lost my voice, I was still wringing it all out.
わかりますから前原さん。今だけこらえてください。 お願いですから前原さん。
Endure it for now? And then what, huh? What would happen to her, to Satoko? Her body and mind were wounded and she was being made to suffer like this. Can you not even let me howl in vain at it? Is this it, Coach? Are we this powerless? So powerless that we can't even fucking scream from the bottom of our hearts? The voices of the Higurashi made me calm down. I didn't know how long it had been. Satoko abruptly gave a slight bow.
ありがとうございますですわ、ケイチさん。
サトコ。
今、ケイチさんが本当のニーニーみたいに見えました。私の本当のニーニーはいなくなってしまったけど、私にはケイチさんというニーニーがいてくれる。
そうだ。俺がお前のニーニーだ。お前が辛い時絶対に助けてやるから。ニーニーがサトコをきっと助けてやるからな。
Satoshi Hojo, you fucking idiot. If not now, then when? Satoko, she's never been in more pain in her life. If her Nini doesn't save her now, then when will he? Why did you run away? Why did you abandon her? Why did you leave Satoko behind? You don't have any right to call yourself Satoko's Nini.
逃げないからな。
え？
絶対に逃げない。サトシみたいにお前を見捨てて逃げたりしない。絶対に。俺はお前を見捨てない。
Tears trickled down from Satoko's eyes. And then she narrowed her eyes into a
さよ
smile.
なら、ニーニー。
Satoko took her right hand and awkwardly waved to me.
大丈夫ですわ。今のニーニーので私いっぱい力をもらいましたから大丈夫。明日まで頑張れますから大丈夫だから今日はさよならでございますわよ。
There was no way that I could say, bye, see you tomorrow. And then, from inside the house came a throaty, disgusting voice.
はよ、乾きも持ってこんかい。
さあ、ニーニー、早く行ってくださいませ。もう、私は大丈夫ですから、早く。
行きましょう前原さん。これ以上はかえって聡子ちゃんに迷惑をかけます。
監督、ニーニーのお家はちょっと遠いんですの。申し訳ございませんが送ってあげていただけます？
ええ、わかりました。
Coach grabbed me by the collar and with strength I couldn't have imagined him having started dragging me away. And I, unable to oppose him, started getting farther and farther from Satoko. She waved her hand to us, expression still dark, and disappeared through the back door. Coach got into the car first, then turned around a narrow path and brought the passenger side door around to me.
前原さんの気持ちは痛いくらいにわかります。いえ、前原さん以上にわかるつもりです。でも今この場だけはこらえてください。あなたの心は確かに伝わりましたから。だからこらえてください。でないと。
もう分かってます。すみません。さっきはありがとうございました。
Yep, that's basically it. I meekly got into the passenger seat. The car accelerated quietly, and Satoko's house grew farther and farther away from the rearview mirror. It made a wide turn, and then I couldn't see her house anymore.
え、あなたのお家そんな遠くなんですか？
Yeah, I think we all do. This one's been rough.
学校の反対側じゃないですか。
I didn't bother to reply. I would have been hard-pressed to give him an answer as to why I was at Satoko's house. Coach didn't say anything more either. For a while, the two of us were silent, the only sounds of the gravel spraying over the road as we drove. I remembered how Rena said things were different than last year. At the time, she had Satoshi with her. Satoshi protected Satoko, so that less of the sparks fell
で
onto
も今
her.
はサトシはいない。
はい、残酷ですが、それが事実です。
Coach seemed to understand what I really meant when I said
悲
that.
しく、あまりに残酷な話ですが。
I think this story also lands a lot more if you're playing with the voice acting too. It adds a lot more to what's happening.
私たちの決意や努力、尽力には限界があります。
It sounded like an excuse, but he was right. Even if Coach and I wanted to be people Satoko could depend on, that was all. It ended at the front door. No matter how much I shouted that I wanted to be her Nini, no matter how much I shouted that I wouldn't abandon her, and no matter how much Satoko called me Nini, I couldn't do any more than that.
サトシは一体どこに行っちまったんですか？
Right, Satoshi was another story. Her actual brother, Satoshi, he was in a position to protect her far, far better than we ever could. That was the cold, sad truth of the massive gulf between Satoshi and
今
us.
頃、どこでどうしているんでしょう。
Satoshi left home. I don't know why. Maybe it was because Oyashiro-sama's curse, or he disappeared or something. In any case, he wasn't beside Satoko now. At the time Satoko needed him to protect her the most, he wasn't there.
どうして今ここにいないんですか？一番守ってやらなければならないこの時に。
お社様のたたりがどうとかいろいろ言われてますが、家出したとしか言えません。
ある日を境に帰ってこないって仲間が言ってました。妹の聡子に書き置き一つ残さずに家出を。
サトシ君はコツコツとアルバイトをしてたんです。聡子ちゃんが当時とても大きなぬいぐるみを欲しがってましてね。結構いい値段らしくて、そのためにアルバイトをいろいろとしていたらしいんです。妹思いの兄でしたからね。おじ夫婦のもとで不憫な生活を強いられている妹に少しでも立派な誕生日プレゼントを贈ろうとしているんじゃないかってみんなささやき合っていました。
In the end, he didn't use his savings for a birthday present for
サトシ君
Satoko.
がいなくなり、警察がいろいろと調べたら、サトシ君の貯金が当日すべて本人によって下ろされていることが分かりました。方々をいろいろと調べた結果、その貯金を資金に東京の方に行ったんではないかということになりました。
東京？何しに？
家出としか言いようがないじゃないですか。
自分が逃げ出すための資金をコツコツと貯めて、そこまでは勝手ですよ。でも聡子を置いてくことはないじゃないですか。同じ家出するなら聡子も連れて行くべきだった。
Even now, Coach was still calm. He wasn't trying to pour any oil on the fire of my anger at all. He just waited until my anger naturally subsided. After listening to gravel being crushed under the wheels for a little while, Coach spoke abruptly.
察してください。置いていかれた聡子ちゃんも同じ考えに至ったんです。
I'm a burden on my brother, and that's why he abandoned me. He didn't take her with him when he left. How terrible must Satoko have felt, being betrayed by the brother she loved so much.
でも聡子ちゃんはとても強い人でした。もちろん親しい友人たちの支えもあってのことでしたが、ああして笑顔を取り戻すことができました。
I recalled how Satoko had spoken of Satoshi so brightly. when I was eating dinner with her at Rika-chan a few days ago. At the time, I didn't think any more of it than how pleasant their sibling love had been. But now that I did think about it, I realized it was like she was peering into the distance from atop a pile of tragic perseverance.
サトシ君はきっと帰ってくる。その時までにお荷物じゃなくなった自分を見てほしいって。
Ooh. Oh, just rips your fucking heart out. Ugh.
サトコはお荷物なんかじゃないですよ。あいつ俺なんかよりよっぽど生活力はあるし、大抵のことは何だってできる。そりゃレナやリカちゃんなんかと比べれば劣る点はたくさんあるかもしれないけど、そこいらのやつよりよっぽど一人前ですよ。
サトシ君がいつ帰ってきてもいいように、そういう風になれるよう努力した結果です。涙ぐましい努力があったんですよ。
While she lived with Rika-chan, Rika-chan taught her how to handle everything flawlessly, also that she could welcome back Satoshi at any time, so that she could show him she wasn't ashamed.
で、そのサトシはいつ帰ってくるんですか？
I asked Coach, but I knew he wouldn't be able to answer. In any case, Satoshi ran away. He left Satoko and ran away from Hinamizawa. Someone said that when you leave Hinamizawa and run away, Oyashiro-sama's curse gets you, right? Then that made sense. Satoshi running away and his disappearance, that would obviously mean people thought it was the curse, right? And they could smile as though it were his own fault, as though he got what he deserved. Hey, Oyashiro-sama, whoever you are. Satoshi didn't vanish because he ran away. You demoned him away with your curse, didn't you? If that's not what happened, then I couldn't forgive him.
サトシはいつ頃逃げ出したんですか？
去年の綿流しのお祭りの夜、おばが異常者に殺されて、その数日後のサトコちゃんの誕生日にです。
サトコの誕生日に？
I slammed my hands into the dashboard in front of me with all my might. Satoshi, of all the days he could have chosen to run away. Their aunt just died a few days before, didn't she? All your days of suffering were about to end, weren't they? You were just about to start thinking about a new life, weren't you? It's wrong to be happy about someone dying, but for Satoko and her brother, her birthday had come at a critical turning point. Their mean uncle had fled town, and the siblings would be left alone. They should have been able to be happy about that. On Satoko's birthday. Satoko probably waiting for her brother to return the whole time, waiting for her brother to return, when he never did. Waiting with bated breath for her brother to return, her hopes and dreams of a new life to come growing ever larger. But no matter how long she waited, he didn't come back. He didn't even contact her. Satoko, trembling in anticipation of a great present, when would she have to face the cold, terrible truth? Satoshi, you fucking idiot. I could feel my blood rising to my head in my anger at Satoshi. I was flustered. I was aggravated. I couldn't forgive him. Satoko still respected and adored her brother, and yet he so heartlessly betrayed her. Such a person wouldn't just come back. Now when he was most needed. Yes, no one would protect her. Not even her real brother Satoshi.
だからあなたがニーニーだと認めてもらえて嬉しかったです。私もサトコちゃんの幸せを祈る一人ですが、社会的立場があり、日中は仕事をしている身です。私がサトコちゃんのために割いてあげられる時間は少ない。でもあなたは違います。学校で生活を共にし、サトコちゃんやサトシ君とも年はほとんど離れていない。あなたは自分ができることに限りがあると思っていますが、それでも私よりはずっとサトコちゃんに手を差し伸べられる場所にいるのです。だから私の分までサトコちゃんの力になってあげてほしい、そう願っています。
そんなことは監督だって。
もちろん 年季のある私だからこそできる助けだっていろいろあると思います。同じようにあなたにしかできない助けだってあるということです。私たちは互いにそれを全うすべきだと申し上げたいのです。
Was that a little too complicated? Coach added that, but I shook my head in response. When I heard him say he had job skills, it reminded me that that he was an adult in a different position from all of us. Maybe I should ask him about it.
監督は法律とか詳しいですか？
いえ、平均的に疎いですが、何か。
I thought back to when I argued with Mion and the others about Satoko. Our children's argument had only left us with the conclusion that we had to wait and see, but what would an adult think?
児童福祉法でしたっけ？児童の安全を確保するために緊急措置として親子を分離させるという方法があるそうです。
緊急措置？じゃあすぐに聡子をおじの元から救い出せるということじゃないですか。
聡子ちゃんがそれを望まないかもしれません。
聡子が望まない？どうして？
Coach didn't answer me. I didn't know why he didn't. It was clear as day that Satoko's uncle was being violent and treating her like a slave. So then why? I clamped down on my frenzied emotions and waited intently for Coach to answer, but he never did. It was like he was pretending he hadn't heard me. If I had to say, it was more like he wanted to explain but couldn't put it into the right
聡子
words.
ちゃんは多分そういう仕打ちに耐えるのも試練だと考えているかもしれません。
試練？変な宗教じゃあるまいし。
ご存知と思いますが、サトシ君は聡子ちゃんをずっとかばってきました。聡子ちゃんもずっとサトシ君に頼ってきました。甘えてきたと言うべきかもしれません。
I'd known for a while that Satoshi had always protected Satoko from their aunt and uncle. But that was his duty as an older brother, not something to worry
そ
about.
れがトラウマになったかもしれないんですよ。自分が兄にもたれかかりすぎたから兄が自分を嫌ってしまったんではないかってね。
And for Satoko, the current situation was a retelling of the story over a little over a year ago. But this time, Satoshi wasn't
だか
here.
ら誰にも頼らずに自分の力だけで試練を乗り越えたい。そういう力を身につけなければサトシ君は帰ってこない。そういう考えになっていると私は考えます。
Now that he mentioned it, Satoko had never said a word about how hard it had been before. I figured she was being threatened not to talk
みんな
about
と
it,
相談
but
して児童相談所とかに通報すべきかなんて話をしてました。
聞いてますよね。昨年も福祉士さんが聡子ちゃんのところに行ってるのは。
はい。結局様子見で余計にいじめられたって話も。
あれ聡子ちゃんが自分で通報したらしいんです。でその結果余計いじめが水面下へ移行してエスカレートした。聡子ちゃんに降りかかるいじめも増え、それをかばうサトシ君の負担も著しく増えた。
ひょっとして佐藤それ通報した自分の責任だなんて思ってるんじゃ。
Coach nodded quietly.
聡子ちゃんに通報の話をするととても嫌がるが、その必要はないと強がりを言うのです。
That's how that usually goes.
聡子ちゃんに内緒で通報したとしても福祉士に対して自分は虐待を受けている。
Yeah, that's how that usually goes. Satoko always acts tough and doesn't readily admit defeat, so I can imagine that
一応
easily.
児童相談所には裁判所の許可も当事者の許可も一切不要で緊急措置ができる強い権限があるんだそうです。虐待が公然の事実なら聡子ちゃんが否定しても身柄は強制的に保護されるでしょう。それは聡子ちゃんにとっては負けを意味するものなのかもしれませんが。
勝ち負けの問題じゃないですよ。 聡子は現実に。
話を折りますが、身柄が保護されると所定の施設に送致されます。そうするとですね、そこで暮らすことになるので、つまり引っ越しということになります。ですから学区変更で転校にもなります。
転校は仕方ないです。それであいつが保護されるなら。
聡子ちゃんはその辺の事情も知っています。だからますます保護を望みません。
どうして？
あの家でサトシ君の帰りを待つのが聡子ちゃんの生きる理由でもあります。兄に捨てられた少女が何に生きる理由を見出したか、あなたのでなく聡子ちゃんの価値観で考えてあげてください。
I felt like he was trying to confuse me with the hard-to-understand roundabout way of talking so unique to adults. The point was that I couldn't do anything about Satoko wanting to stay in that house, and that I should watch until she gives in. In the end, no matter what I did, Coach himself was saying to wait and see.
俺はわかりませんよ。
はい。
俺は本当に聡子が危ないと感じたら誰の意思も聞かずに行動します。その結果、聡子は不快な思いをして俺を恨むことがあるかもしれないけど、最終的にはそれが聡子の幸せにつながると信じます。
Coach turned to me and gazed fixedly into my eyes. It was written all over his face. He was shocked at what such a young kid had just
どうし
said.
てあなたはそこまで。
Coach, no rather, normal adults might not have understood.
Wowee!
Thank you for the sub, Tengu. Much appreciated. Appreciate it. Thank you for the 31 months. Look at all that. Much appreciated. So I taught him the creed and the values that I believed
聡子は
in.
俺の仲間だから。そして俺は聡子のニーニーだから。では理由は足りませんか？
I stared at him with a will strong and unbreakable as steel as his eyes betrayed a tiny bit of unrest.
足りないなんてことはありません。
We sat silent for a little while until finally the coach said only that.
誓ったじゃないですか、俺たち。
すみません。
Thank you for the 100 bits.
聡子を絶対に泣かせないって。
We made a vow that day at the barbecue party. I didn't think that it was that about it hard at all, but Coach and I still made a promise that we wouldn't ever let Satoko cry. Coach gave a dry grin of regret, immediately apologizing for not remembering. One way or another, when he grinned like that, it made me think that his enthusiasm for saving Satoko was a tiny bit smaller than mine. He lightly hit the brakes, making a skidding noise, and leaned forward.
ひょっとして前原さんのお家ってあれですか？ああ、前原屋敷が前原さんのお家だったんですね。
Before I knew it, we were almost to my house. Whew! That one was rough. Oh. Case file 31. Oh boy. So give me just a moment. Allergies are treating me like garbage, and I'm going to blow my nose and be right back. mean, that about sums it up, doesn't it? I mean, Jesus Christ. Oh. This one. Ugh. This one's been hard. This has definitely been the chapter where, oh, there's nothing. I can't do anything to make this entertaining. This is this chapter where you just sit back and let all of that wash over you because, oh boy. All right. We have ourselves a tip, which I have no doubt is related to the previous incident of the Child Protective Services having been called. It's entertaining in its own way, I suppose, but this is boy, this is the hardest chapter we've had. Oh. All right. December 1st, 1981. Juvenile Welfare Division reports. Do not view, do not duplicate. Case 31, November 20th. Satoko Hojo, X years old. Residence, blah blah, Hinamazawa Village, Shishibone. Consultation circumstances. Anonymous telephone, SOS of child abuse. Number 2, abuse situation. Anonymous claims that a female child is suffering physical abuse by adoptive parents, her guardians. Family structure marks abusers. Adoptive father, adoptive mother, older brother, child in question. Note, in June 1980, the child's parents died in an accident and she was given to her uncle on her father's side, her father's younger brother. 4. Child Consultation Center's response. On the day of the anonymous telephone consultation, the center called the child's school and asked of her situation. The next day, the welfare officer on duty visited the child's home and heard what they had to say. Both adoptive parents agreed that to the center's coaching. Contacted anti-abuse network in the city. As part of this suggested coaching, a district welfare officer in the area began visiting for coaching at fixed intervals. The scrawled note below is stapled to the report. Related information from further official Mr. W. Refer to 1977 document D23 number 44. Ask Chief Investigator F from the city's educational consultation offices. He is well informed about it. So that's the previous report that had been filed. Yeah, I can't even bring myself to laugh. Sorry. Like I know people that have been in this situation, and I just can't draw laughter from it. So I'm just going to choose to ignore all jokes about it. Honestly, no, there's just no part of me that can laugh at it or make a joke. Sorry, it's just not there. Who's Mr. W? Exactly. Jetstorm. You let me know when you're live, and I'll go ahead and throw it over to you, and we'll just hang out here until you press the live button. But please do so in a few moments, because I don't want to sit here too long, so I can go ahead and throw the host over to you. So you go ahead and get on that.